second session, a second panel discussion following the first session that we had this morning. And this second panel discussion will be on the topic of regional conflicts and security challenges.
And our distinguished panelists for this session are Lieutenant Colonel Koko Ong from Myanmar and Dr. Suwit Mangkla from Thailand. And this session will be moderated by Rear Admiral Don Tipanan.
Unfortunately, we did have another panelist, His Excellency, the Indian Ambassador to Thailand, but he's unfortunately cannot join us today due to an urgent call that he had to attend today. So he has to apologize for his inability to attend the panel discussion on this occasion. So we will only have two panelists, together with a very handsome moderator to take us through the program of the afternoon session this afternoon. So without further ado, please welcome all the three gentlemen to the stage. ขอเสียงปรบมือด้วยนะครับ A big round of applause, please. All three of them are taking their seats. I'd like to quickly go through their backgrounds and bios. For the first panelist, Lieutenant Colonel Koko Ong from Myanmar is an alternative executive board member at the Myanmar Institute of Strategic and International Studies in Yangon. He also collaborates with the Office of the Chief of Armed Forces Training in Naypyidaw and is an associate professor at the Defense Service Academy's Department of Computer Science. He holds a PhD in computer science from Russia and a master's in public management and policy analysis from the International University of Japan. He has extensive experience organizing and presenting at high-level conferences, including ADMM Plus Experts Working Group on Counterterrorism.
And for our second speaker, Dr. Suwit Mangkla, who is the Deputy Director General of Thailand's Department of ASEAN Affairs. With a PhD in International Relations from the University of Bristol, he has over 20 years of diplomatic experience, specializing in ASEAN affairs. He has held various positions within the Thai Foreign Ministry and embassies abroad, making him an expert on regional cooperation and international relations in Southeast Asia.
And as for our handsome moderator, I'm sure you all agree with this. Rear Admiral Don Tipanan is an expert of the Royal Thai Navy with a diverse military career. He's a graduate of the Royal Thai Naval Academy. He holds advanced degrees in public policy and strategic security studies. And starting as the Thai Navy SEAL unit leader, he has developed expertise in intelligence, operations, and academics. He has been instrumental in combating illegal fishing and human trafficking, participating in various forums on maritime security. His efforts earned him the 2018 Prime Minister's Award for addressing trafficking issues. He previously served as Deputy Director of Joint Operations at the Royal Thai Armed Forces Headquarters. So now, ladies and gentlemen, once again, please give the three gentlemen a big round of applause. I'd like now to give the microphone to Rear Admiral Don Tipanan, please, sir.
No, the floor is mine, right? So good afternoon. The Commandant of the NSDI, General Bun Sang, former Chief of the Thai Defense Force, and military representative from Thai defense partners and other audience from various organization within the security affairs. Because we miss one gentleman from India, and it impacts our discussion so much. So we discuss amongst our group, and we decide to redesign the discussion. We want to begin first with the big picture from Ministry of Thai Foreign Affairs. Dr. Suwit will give you a big picture on ASEAN in a big picture. And after that, the Lieutenant Colonel Jojo Ong Go on will give you specific picture on what is going on the ground in Myanmar. It may big contrast with what the news reporter said and want us to have the perception for the situation. I would like to, I don't want to waste time. I would like to straightforward to the panel discussion. And each speaker will have 25 minutes. You can have some more time. And after that, we'll have a Q&A. And I encourage all audience to put forward your question on the system. I think all of you registered on the meeting and put your question on that. I can browse it from this device and give that to the panelists directly. Or you can stand up and ask for a microphone and address your question. Okay. Dr. Sweet, I would like to invite you to the podium. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very nervous. My heart is pounding. Why? Because I'm surrounded by uniformed men. I always get excited. I used to want to join the army, but my dad didn't agree with that, and I decided to enter the medical school in the second to last year in my high school. And I got in Sirirat Hospital, but I didn't go. I didn't take the offer. I stayed at Sungla Vidyalaya for another year. At the end, I got the scholarship from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and that's why I'm here as a diplomat. So let me welcome you to my talk, and I'll try to make it exciting if possible, because it's always hard to be the first to speak after a big lunch. So this is going to be hard for me, with my feeling that I'm really nervous, as well as you guys are going to be listening to me for how many hours do you have? Okay, just half an hour. Just half an hour. And I think the gentleman next to me who has to travel further than me. I just came from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs this morning, and I had to have a very big lunch, a very quick lunch just now, very small lunch, so that I'll be in time. So sorry for the late coming as well. But for the gentleman who has been here and he has traveled far, and I'm sure the audience will be more interested in listening to him, to give the perspective from Myanmar on Myanmar. So I try to be quick on my presentation. Right, I have about 30 pages of presentation, so 1 minute each, if I can. So I start by speaking of the cuff, and you can see that I probably have some documents here with me, but I end up normally not sticking to the script. And this is just the script that my colleague from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from ASEAN, Thailand, has helped me with structuring my thought. But I tend to get off the track most of the time. So if I get too off the track, please raise your hand and tell me to stop. Okay, let me start by saying this. I will speak from my heart and from my thinking out loud that Thailand and ASEAN are very, very dependent on each other. Okay, when you talk about possible regional conflicts, I don't want to use the word regional conflicts because I don't want to see our region with conflicts, even though it's inevitable that we might have some conflicts, sometimes, at least verbally, rhetorically, but in practice, we don't really have many conflicts nowadays, something like something very violent, that we witness in the different parts of the world. So I would tend to agree with the previous speaker. I try to follow the morning session through YouTube this morning, so that I, echo some people that already talked, and I won't repeat what they said already. But this is something that I have to repeat. I don't really see that there are many conflicts here, and our region has maintained peace and stability to a certain extent, right? And speaking from my heart is that I have passion for ASEAN. I've been working in ASEAN department for over a decade. So nearly half of my career life so far has been spent in the ASEAN department, in the ASEAN circle. So you can call me Dr. ASEAN, ASEAN man, whatever. But I really believe, and I truly believe, that ASEAN really matters, and matters to the security of all the ASEAN member states, plus, matters for the survival of us in this region. Here, we have 10 member states. Timor-Leste is waiting to join. And in the blue shaded area on the map that you can see, relatively, we have enjoyed peace so far. And I believe that peace is not something that you can gain out of nothing. You have to try to put a lot of efforts to maintain or promote peace. And that's why 57 years ago, Thailand was one of the leading countries as the founding fathers of ASEAN, decided to ask the colleagues around our country, our neighbors, to really come together for survival. And I believe that was then for survival. And right now, the really rationale for having ASEAN is for survival as well. To meet the challenges, to really prevent conflicts. If we have conflicts, we have to solve the conflicts peacefully, settle the conflicts or disputes peacefully and quickly. And that's what ASEAN should serve us in that sense. So this is the details of what we had in 1967 and what we are about to aim or achieve by next year, 2025, because we have had this vision for the past 10 years, and we're going to have the new vision for the next 20 years. Vision 2045 has been drafted, actually agreed already, but we are going to have a small or subset of the what we call the vision as strategic plans on the 3 pillars. So we have the political security strategic plan, we will have the economic strategic plan, we have the socio-cultural strategic plan, plus ASEAN connectivity strategic plans. We will continue with this agenda on connectivity. We have to be connected in order to respond to the common challenges together. Here's the timeline. If you can see from the timeline here, the first thing that you get in 1971, before I was born, there was Declaration of the Zone of Peace, Freedom and Neutrality. I mean, a lot of people would probably not dig deep into the history of ASEAN, and the new generations probably think that ASEAN is about AEC, which is economic growth. We have achieved, we have been very successful in promoting growth in the region. Right now, I think the previous speaker also mentioned that we are the 5th largest economy in the world, and we become the 4th largest in no time. But actually, at the beginning, at its birth, it was political security, geopolitics that caused ASEAN to be born. And 1971, we had this declaration, which I think Probably half of the audience of mine here probably not aware that we have this thing. Something more familiar is called TAC, the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation. This one still exists. It has been 30 years, 1976. 30 years? No, more than that, right? I don't know. I'm not good at maths anymore. I used to be good when I entered the medical school, but right now, as a social scientist and also a diplomat, you lost some kind of logic, you know. You lost some kind of thinking in terms of mathematical thinking, you know. You're analyzing in terms of uncertainty, ambiguity, volatility, and complexity. VUCA world. And you cannot predict. So sad. I think there was a previous speaker from Germany, I think, you know, he said about unpredictability. And it's so difficult to predict. So what we do, we have this TAC, which is a big treaty, and we have over 50 contracting parties outside ASEAN joining TAC, and more to come. We welcome all. We want to make this region inclusive and open and transparent without conflicts. So everyone is welcome to join the TAC. There is actually in the TAC, if you read the TAC, which I haven't read every page, but there is a dispute settlement mechanism there that can be utilized. But you know what? If you want to utilize that, you have to go by consensus. And consensus means 10 plus, you know, over 50. So 60-something people have to agree with you. But there is a charm on consensus. We can talk about this, we can discuss about this later. Some people think that we go too slow, you know, ASEAN, and we don't really manage effectively the challenges, or we don't really know how to deal with things like urgent matters, urgent disasters, but you're wrong, and I will prove you wrong. We can do it in a slow but sure, langsam aber sicher, you know. That's a German word for it. Another political settlement of Cambodian problem was there in the timeline, 1991. There was achievement of ASEAN. We had ASEAN not 10 at that time, because not all joined ASEAN as yet. But we could have helped solve the problem in a country in the region. So this is why I would talk to my colleague here and make sure that he understands that ASEAN wants to help Myanmar at this juncture. Chongfest, 1995, is a treaty, so it's politically binding. We don't want nuclear weapons. We don't want the use of nuclear weapons. We don't want the use of force or the threat of use of force here. And we try to ask the 5 nuclear weapon states, the big ones, to join the protocol. They have some reservations, they have some conditions to join. Some said already, if the gentleman from China is still here, he would know that China said, I want to be the first one to join the protocol of Chongfest Treaty without condition. Still going on, negotiation. If you're interested, we can discuss about it, but I don't have time. Anyway, cut the long story short. We have themes for the past years of ASEAN. And the latest is the Lao PDR's chairmanship. The theme is very positive, very constructive. It's on enhancing connectivity and resilience. But you know what? Behind these words, it's not just about connectivity, which is not strategic. It's strategic connectivity. If you ask the Chinese friend when they came up with the BRI, they had really strategic mind in coming up with this idea. And you can trace the story back to the history of Belt Road Initiative, thousands of years before. If you ask the American friends and allies, or even Japanese who came up first with the free and open Indo-Pacific, It's all strategically crafted. And they talk about politics, they talk about security, they talk about peace and stability. So behind these words, connectivity, resilience, we are aware that we are at the juncture that we need to deal with common challenges, and we have to put collective efforts. As I mentioned before, it doesn't come easily. We have to put efforts together to maintain regional peace and stability. I was going to mistake and say regional conflicts. Highlights are here. I don't want to go too far and go into everything, but one thing I want to highlight is ARF. ARF was initiated by Thailand, and the first ARF was in Thailand, was hosted in Thailand. And we asked others to join. So it's bigger picture of the ASEAN-led mechanisms or ASEAN-centered regional architecture. You can add security there, regional security architecture. But our ARF is meant to build trust and confidence from the beginning. We also have the plans to achieve the next two steps, which is preventive diplomacy, and the other one is conflict resolution or dispute settlement. But we haven't gone that far. We need to revitalize ARF. We are discussing right now how to revitalize, to reinvigorate ARF, because it has been more like a talk shop, like a forum that hosts a lot of workshops for capacity buildings, for confidence building measures, but nothing much. But I still believe that this ARF, ASEAN-led mechanism, still has some meaning if we want to use it wisely. Now, ASEAN in the world. VUCA world, we talk about it. And we have mentioned this morning, we have heard a lot of things about the global trends, about the disruptions. Professor Dr. Surakiat, my former boss, I mean, he was the former deputy prime minister and foreign minister when I joined the ministry 20-something years ago. And he mentioned that there are 5 disruptions. Our German panelist earlier on the previous panel, he mentioned about the 5 global mega trends. They coincide some kind of same groups of things that we can think of right now if we are going to list the challenges nowadays. So I'm not going to go on and on about that. But I want to say that what you can see here, the blue shaded area, is very attractive because the other color shaded areas join us. ASEAN +3 East Asia Summit, ASEAN Regional Forum or ARF. We have friends. Thailand, I'm going to speak at the end of my talk, but I have something to say about Thailand and ASEAN and Thailand's foreign policy. But I leave it for now. I want to focus on this, that ASEAN and Thailand in ASEAN are very attractive to our external partners. They want to join us, and we have a lot of ASEAN-led mechanisms. This is a regional architecture. So this is a bigger picture. The outer circle, you can see, is AOIP, which is ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific. And this was adopted, this document was adopted in 2019, when Thailand was the chair of ASEAN, not many years ago. During that time, of course, we had the strategies on Indo-Pacific from our external friends, external partners. And before that, there was a BRI and the rise of China. So you can try to analyze in terms of sequence what happened and why ASEAN had to come up with our own outlook, our own wisdom, to make sure that we have both friends and partners, not foes. I think Professor Dr. Surakiart in his keynote speech also talks about this, friends and foes. Friends and foes. He talked about identity politics, which is something that I was really passionate when I was doing my PhD thesis many years back. I can't remember what I wrote. But it was something about identity construction, and it matters in foreign policy interaction in the world. When you talk about us versus vis-a-vis them, when you talk about they are our friends and these are our foes, it matters. There are theories that explain about this. The straightforward one is realism, neorealism. I'm trying to put academic hat here a bit. And they talk about balance of power, bandwagoning, or even hedging. But on the other hand, you have those postmodernist thinking, talking about discourses, how identity is constructed, but it's not real, it's imagined. It's according to the perception. But this imagined identity actually matters in real terms when you base your strategy on that thinking. When the Chinese speaker mentioned about the US-China relation or rivalry, and he said, we are neither friends nor foes. I think I tried to listen when I was doing something else as well at the ministry this morning. That's why I didn't join you. This is very constructive in a way, ambiguity. You know, and I think ASEAN has played that role for some time. At the beginning, we probably quite clear on what we chose in terms of our future direction and our path. Because we, group of 5, didn't want communist regime. But as we have evolved and we have developed, we have become something different. And we have become something that I would call constructively ambiguous. And it could be a tactic that is good for keeping peace and stability in the region. Now, a lot of countries, okay, they have different status. They have status of dialogue partners which are closer, seem to be closer. And they have more intense cooperation with us, relations with us in multinational, dimensional perspectives. And we have the +3, +8, I already talked about it. The EAS is a strategic forum for leaders to discuss in a frank and candid manner. Of course, politicization is there with the US, the Russians, and the Chinese there. We have sectoral dialogue partners, we have development partners. I just sat for my quick lunch with a lady from Norway, and I promised to her that I mention her country because part of our partner is also Norway's there. You're there. Thank you. Now, geopolitics. I don't think that I should repeat what previous speakers have mentioned, and a lot of people already stressed about geopolitical shift. Pretty picture, smiley, friendly, game of chess down there. Is that Angry Birds? With a lot of countries there. Cute, right? Not serious. But can we take it in a way that we're not serious about it? Not really, because there is such a map like this. USA and allies, Russia and allies, People's Republic of China and allies. shaded in different colors. You can disagree with this map, because I took it from a website. So it's not mine. Now, for ASEAN to deal with that geopolitics, we have to have principles. And I have mentioned already that we have the TAC since 1976. So nearly 50 years ago. Right? Yes. Because I was born in 1974. I'm 50 this year. Big birthday. Next month. I'm short and I'm small, and sometimes people are mistaken that I'm not that old. But if you get closer, yes, I'm quite old. I always forget things. I nearly forgot that I had to come here today. ASEAN Charter was there with the principles in there. You know, you name it. What you call ASEAN Way, with the principles behind us. The principles that help us to achieve what we have achieved so far. You might not agree with some principles like non-interference. Some people in ASEAN tend to disagree as well, because we should interfere when we need to. But the way we interfere is probably different from what you think from the outside views. The way we will interfere would be in a more subtle, with comfort level. I don't know whether my colleague from Myanmar will agree with me, but we can discuss on this too. And the AOIP laid out the principles there: inclusivity, openness, transparency. Actually, the 3M is there: mutual trust, mutual benefit, mutual something, respect. Yes. I don't need to repeat this, huh? Global power shift, food, energy, I think is the next session. We have the technology, innovation, digitalization, which is a big disruption in the world. And we already heard about it. But this is big, because when we talk about conflicts, it's not just land and sea anymore. It's not land and maritime domain, but it's cyber. Of course, people have been talking about the two wars, right, between the US and China. Time is up, but I still have more time, right? 2 more minutes only? You can talk for an hour, sir, because we have plenty of time. Maybe next round, if I have time. But I will add another war, apart from technological war and trade war. It's the trust war. The Chinese has been talking to the ASEAN member states that we share the same value, and it's called ASEAN or Asian values. We have the cultural and historical traits that we shared. And the external forces, they don't share this with us. This is discursive. This is a discourse. This is identity politics. This is something to do with a kind of war that we probably have to be aware of, which is trust war. I think I will stop here, but let me end, as I promised that I meant to say this. In order to prevent regional conflicts, and in order to make sure that we address common challenges together, for Thailand, this is Thailand's perspective. I think there are two sides of the same coin. One is strength from within. And I'm talking about Thai politics and how to put our house in order. Let me touch on this, please. We cannot be strong as a nation state, as a member of ASEAN, if we are not strong from within. And this is very important. Foreign policy begins at home. I cannot do much as a diplomat if my house is in disorder. So this is very important for me. Another side of the same coin is strength from without. This is probably not grammatically correct, but what I mean is that sometimes you don't have much to attract people that want to divide and rule you. Maybe it's a good thing. That's one thing. You lack something for the benefit of something else. I just try to stimulate your thought now. So sometimes being a small to medium-sized state and have foreign policy or strategies that you don't choose sides. I don't want to talk about buffet or a la carte menu for foreign policy of Thailand. But you can be someone without foes. You can be friends with a lot of people. And ASEAN is something that we can do much more together with our neighbors, which is something that for Thailand cannot do alone. So I end my presentation here. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Suwit. And next is Lieutenant Colonel Koko Ong. He will give you a picture of what happened on the ground in Myanmar, right? You have 25 minutes, and you may have more than that, maybe 2 minutes. Okay.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, our esteemed Air Marshal Punjai Laksan Trakorn, Commanding General of National Defense Studies Institute, and our General Advisor of National Defense Studies Institute, and all esteemed participants, guests, and ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Koko Ong from Myanmar Armed Forces, and it's my honor to be here to discuss the specific topic, the ongoing conflicts in Myanmar. Is a topic of significant importance, not just for our country, not just for Myanmar, but for the entire region. And the facts in my presentation would be quite different from what you see in the international media, because the international media is dominated by the opposite side, not by the Myanmar military government side. However, in order to solve the problem, you have to listen to the both sides. So this is the voice of Myanmar military government. Myanmar is a country with a rich history and diverse culture, and it has had various internal conflicts for decades since the independence. These conflicts have deep roots in ethnic, political, and socio-economic divisions. Despite efforts at peace, the situation remains unstable and continues to have far-reaching consequences. Understanding the roots and the current state of this conflict is crucial for developing effective strategies for peace and stability. So I will discuss the causes and events of the ongoing conflicts and propose ideas to develop peace and stability. First of all, Myanmar has a complex political history marked by periods of colonial rule, multi-party system, one-party socialist system, military regime, and multi-party democratic system, and every system we have had. So since the independence from British colonial system, local armed groups and insurgent movements have emerged over the decades, driven by ethnic and political extremists. So in those conflicts, there are key players that are shown in the slide. The first one is Myanmar military, which is called Tatmadaw. The Tamil believes that they has to play a dominant role in Myanmar politics because to safeguard the nation, national integration, they have to play a crucial role in the politics due to the various armed groups in the country. And on the other side, the ethnic insurgent groups, there are numerous ethnic groups, ethnic armed groups in Myanmar. They have their own agendas. And the government believes that these armed groups do not truly represent their entire territories. These groups have been conflicts with the central government, and these groups have also conflict between them. And the other actors are the now recently emerged. The situation is further complicated by the presence of them. For instance, local PDFs, the government believes that they are developing the extremism and conducting the terrorist acts. So the current situation today, as we all know, an escalation in terrorist acts and armed conflicts has been seen, particularly in some regions like Rakhine, in northern part, Kachin, Shan, as the other speakers mentioned in the previous presentations. So as for the statistics in Global Terrorism Index, Myanmar is at the highest risk of terrorism. This is a report issued in 2022 by the Global Terrorism Trend and Analysis Center. It highlights the dramatically increasement of the terrorism index of Myanmar year by year, and also the significant involvement of Myanmar-based terrorist groups. Originally, in the detailed information, they have mentioned that those groups are PDF groups. They committed terrorist acts in various ways. But later, the detailed information is eliminated on their website due to the politics. But we could record them. These codes are originally included in their website. So, and then in 2024, this year, Myanmar Terrorism Index became even higher, number 9 in the world, and probably the highest one in the region. The reason is that we all know, because of the ongoing conflicts happening in Myanmar. So now we will check what is the cause. We will review how the ongoing conflicts in Myanmar happen and increase terrorism index during these years. As we all know, in 2021, Myanmar had political changes. The root cause is in 2020 general election. Large amount of electoral frauds had been found, and there were political disputes. At that time, the incumbent government, NLD government, dismissed all the requests and disputes from the other political parties and the armed forces. So, according to the constitution, the armed forces temporarily took the responsibility of the state and made the necessary tasks to conduct the free and fair election again. However, in the wake of these political changes, some politicians used the public sentiment to pursue their own political goals, particularly to regain their power. Initial protests, which are absolutely normal in democratic culture, so the government permitted the protests under the law. But those protests quickly escalated into riots and anarchy. This led to destructions, intimidation of administrative mechanism, and violence against innocent civilians and non-supporters for them. Even some were killed brutally, then made armed attacks on police stations, public road blockades, vandalized and destroyed offices, killed security personnel, including police officers, and signaling a shift towards more extreme actions. Politically extremist groups, particularly those associated with the NLD party and their supporters, formed entities such as so-called National Unity Government and PDF, People Defense Forces. These groups began radicalizing people, particularly those with personal, social, or political grievances, making them susceptible to extremist ideologies. Influenced by radical content online and interactions with already radicalized individuals, these people were driven to commit acts of violence to achieve their ideological goals. Over time, these radicalized individuals and extremist groups have joined forces with ethnic insurgent groups in the same states and regions. Their activities now include destroying towns and cities, occupying territories, as we have seen on the internet, and aiming to disintegrate the nation as a whole. So here is the illustration of the development of extremist terrorism in Myanmar. Although they started with the protest, now their activities are transformed into the terrorism. As I have presented, in order to conduct terrorist acts, individuals are radicalized. Actually, several factors may contribute to radicalization process, but in our case, the significant ones are ideological influences and social networks. Online contents, hate speech, or social influencers play a significant role in radicalizing people. Once radicalized, individuals are ready to commit the acts of terrorism. The terrorist acts carried out by the extremist groups are presented on the slide. These can range from small-scale attacks to large coordinated operations. They have targeted civilians, ordinary administrative personnel, educators, and even Buddhist monks, labeling them as informants for the military or supporters of the government administration. Moreover, these terrorist groups have systematically targeted and destroyed critical infrastructure across the country, aiming to disrupt the socio-economic lives of the people. Similarly, the transporting public goods were also attacked at that time, destroyed. It disrupted the trade and harmed the country's economy. Ladies and gentlemen, differences of political perspectives are a very common feature of society. However, witnessing such destruction caused by extremist groups in pursuit of their ideological agendas is not acceptable by anyone. Terrorist organizations in Myanmar have extended their malevolent activities to vital sectors such as education and healthcare sector, as we may see in the slide. They employ various tactics to disrupt the normal functionings of schools. They also made arson attacks on schools, targeted killings of teachers, and even established military bases within educational premises. In the healthcare sector, briefly saying, hospitals are attacked, operations are halted, medical operations are halted, and medical professionals who refuse to comply are killed. Here is the statistics of these attacks in Myanmar during 3.5 years, bombing, arson attacks, and killing people by such insurgent groups. If you see the statistics, apart from some attacks on security sector, most of the attacks are non-combatant innocent civilians. So the attacks were not only by politically extremist PDF and UG groups, but also the ethnic insurgent groups who are taking the opportunities of the instability of country's situation. So who are the ethnic insurgent groups? They often claim to fight for democracy, but do not adhere to democratic principles in practice. These groups are typically led by warlords who enforce authoritarian control over the territories they occupy. Instead of fostering legitimate economic growth, these groups engage in the production and trafficking of illegal drugs. In their control areas, there's a widespread discrimination and racist behavior recently happened, particularly against the Burma ethnic group, the major ethnic group. And the actions of these groups led to social instability, economic hardship, and human rights violation within their territories. Now let me present the conflicts in Myanmar, how the conflicts in Myanmar are fueled, how the conflicts are ongoing. Conflicts cannot be continuing without funding. So funding is the lifeblood of this organization, how they get it, how they enable to recruit members, procure weapons, plan, execute attacks, and sustain their activities over time. Without financial resources, these groups will struggle to manage their operations and influence. These groups utilize various ways of finding sources, like presented on the slide, radicalizing people on social media, and then collecting the donations from their supporters, and traditional funding sources such as arms smuggling and illegal drug trafficking. So they got the funding from these activities. So I'll not go detail about these funding sources as due to the time constraint. And also, if we are talking about the illegal drug trafficking, we should have to mention that the relations between illegal drugs and those groups. The connection between the production, distribution, and sale of those illegal drugs and ethnic arms organizations is nearly absolute, particularly in Myanmar context. Although the government's efforts to combat drug abuse and trafficking, the illegal drug trafficking remains a major challenge due to these insurgent groups. However, certain countries apply political pressure on Myanmar while ignoring the rules of drug trafficking, enabling insurgent groups. Actually, drug trafficking fuels the insurgent groups and it leads to regional instability and increased arms smuggling. So what are the impact of those conflicts? The ongoing conflicts in Myanmar have significantly impacted regional security. These conflicts have led to spillover effects, including humanitarian security challenges stemming from the refugee crisis, as well as cross-border insurgency and terrorism, all of which are destabilizing the region's security dynamics. And also, impact on the global security. Myanmar's internal conflict have broader implications for global security. Terrorist activities within Myanmar may contribute to the growth of global terrorism networks. Additionally, these conflicts could disrupt global trade routes and markets. So international regional organizations like the UN, ASEAN, BIMSTEC, and everything play a critical role in mitigating these conflicts and maintaining global stability. Also, given Myanmar's strategic importance in the Indo-Pacific region, it is likely that major global powers will become involved, potentially leading to an escalation in global geopolitical tensions. The complexities of these interactions further complicate the international security landscape. Upon this, let me discuss how our government actions in response to these terrorist acts. These insurgent groups pose significant threats to national security, destabilizing region, and displacing population. Therefore, government conduct the military operation, which is called counterterrorism and stability operations nationwide, and also government take the legislative actions and necessary preventive measures also. In addition, as the narcotic drug trafficking is one of the main income sources of terrorist groups, Myanmar government is focusing on capturing the drug trafficking. Here is the statistics of the seizures of drug trafficking by government from 2021 to the 2023. As for the political solution, a free and fair election will be held soon. Preparations are already underway. Violence is not the solution for the current situation. Therefore, all stakeholders should cooperate in finding a political solution. So these are the ways to solve the problem. And also, efforts for peace and collaboration. Myanmar's internal affairs, shaped by historical and contemporary factors, create a complex and challenging landscape. It is widely acknowledged that the key to resolving Myanmar's issue lies in the hands of its people. But stopping fighting and sitting down to engage in negotiations among all parties for national reconciliation is the only way to achieve peace. Our neighbor country, China, helps to facilitate a ceasefire and talks in the northern region of Myanmar. It has been driven to resume peace and stability. So China and ASEAN share common interests and aspirations in resolving the Myanmar issue. So regarding the ASEAN, the widely known is the ASEAN consensus. Everybody talk about ASEAN consensus upon the Myanmar issue. But here is the Myanmar's military government stance on the ASEAN consensus. So ASEAN has been actively responding to the geopolitical shifts driven by major powers, particularly in relation to the Myanmar conflict. So our government does not even call it a 5-point consensus. We call it 5-point statement. Why? Because of this situation, actually that 5-point statement is ASEAN leaders released it after the meeting in Jakarta, Indonesia on April 24, 2021. And then our Myanmar leader believes that the 5-point statement was not formally adopted during the ASEAN meeting, but was instead released unilaterally at the press conference without Myanmar's official approval. However, Myanmar is taking ASEAN's suggestion seriously and is committed to thoroughly reviewing the recommendations from ASEAN leaders. Myanmar will consider the implementation of 5-point statement by ensuring it aligns with the ASEAN Charter, ASEAN Way, ASEAN Spirit, with a focus on the country's best interests, including the rule of law and community peace. And that 5-point statement is being implemented in line with Myanmar's political situation. And apart from ASEAN, Myanmar is also collaborating with other regional organizations like PINSTEC. The 4th meeting of PINSTEC National Security Chiefs was held in Myanmar on 26 July 2024 in this year. And the member countries also discussed to enhance their regional cooperation to effectively address the challenges in Myanmar, the security challenges in Myanmar as well as in the region. So finally, the policy recommendations for the ongoing conflicts in Myanmar. So there are some policy recommendations that could help to mitigate the ongoing conflicts in Myanmar. The first one is strengthen regional cooperation. ASEAN and neighboring countries should enhance cooperation to address cross-border issues such as drug trafficking, arms smuggling. These activities fuel the conflict. And the second one is to support for a free and fair election because it is a political solution for the current situation. So international and regional actors should support Myanmar in conducting a free and fair election. And also to address humanitarian needs, international community should enhance humanitarian assistance to Myanmar through the channel of governments to ensure that the aid reaches those in need without discrimination. And also develop comprehensive strategies to combat extremist ideologies and prevent the spread of terrorism. This includes strengthening law enforcement capabilities, intelligence sharing, and addressing the socio-economic factors that contribute to radicalization. And finally, economic hardship can exacerbate the instability and contribute to the development of the conflict. So to mitigate the ongoing conflicts in Myanmar, by addressing the economic challenges, international communities are invited to invest in economic development initiatives in Myanmar. So in conclusion, I would like to say that extremist terrorism is unacceptable under any circumstances, whether it is driven by religious, ethnic, or political motives. The ongoing conflicts in Myanmar were initiated by political extremists and have been further exacerbated by ethnic insurgent groups pursuing their own interests, such as occupying the territories and profiting from illegal activities, and including drug trafficking. So violence will not resolve the current situation in Myanmar. Instead, cooperation among all stakeholders is essential in finding a sustainable political solution. A free and fair election will be held soon. So preparations for the elections are already underway. And finally, let me say that all stakeholders, including government, ethnic groups, international community, and everybody are needed to work together to create an environment conducive to peace and development. Cooperation rather than confrontation is essential, is more important, is more necessary to building a future where all communities in Myanmar can thrive in peace and security. So thank you so much for your attention. This is the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel Koko Ang. He gave us a picture of what is going on the ground. And now I would like to sum up what Dr. Sweet have said and what Colonel Ong has said. From Dr. Sweet, he gave our his point of view. From 1967, ASEAN, government of member state of ASEAN, build up on things to harness and advance ASEAN together and connect together for regional peace and stability, and I think for progress also. On ASEAN, there are possible regional conflicts, but we try to mitigate it or to prevent it from happening. We bring every country together for survival and to ensure ASEAN progress. ASEAN Community Vision 2025 consists of 6 points, includes sustainability, how to move forward with domestic turbulence of one member. And that is testing point for our tolerance. ASEAN mechanism for security. We have our, what we call ASEAN way. We interfere with subtle, with 3M, mutual trust, mutual benefit, and mutual respect. There are, at the end of his presentation, he provided the 8 global trends and ASEAN. We need to take that into account together. And 5 regional contexts consists of COVID-19, superpower competition, regional and sub-regional cooperation, climate change, non-traditional challenges. And for Lieutenant Colonel Koko Ang, he gave us background of internal conflicts. Well, I think we can use internal turbulence, right? Internal turbulence. Root of conflict, he identified key players and current situation. And he shed the light on the radicalization in Myanmar that destroy Myanmar infrastructure on both the education and health sector. He gave us the influence of drug cartel in the turbulence and impacts on regional and global security, contribution to geopolitical tensions, the government response to the situation, and working on political solution, efforts for peace and collaboration. At the end of his presentation, he provided 5-point statement. He addressed that the 5-point statement is not adopted by Myanmar, but practically does best to comply. Can I use this term? Yeah. Is not adopted, but does best to comply. 5 policy recommendations from Lieutenant Colonel Ong to strengthen regional cooperation, support free and fair election, focus on humanitarian assistance, combat extreme group or extremist group, and support to economic development. And finally, he addressed that extreme violence is not accepted. There are ongoing conflict on the ground. Violence is not a solution. Political pathway is required and need for cooperation. Right. Now the floor is open for questions. I prepare three hard questions for you. But before that, I want to have you to avoid hard time. I would like to give microphone for audience on the ground. Now, microphone is yours. If you raise your hand, microphone will be yours. Please help them. Please.
Good afternoon. I'm Group Captain Prachaya Indrapanit from Department of Border Affairs, Royal Thai Armed Forces Headquarters. I would like to ask the gentleman from Myanmar military, how could you foresee the conflict situation in Myanmar for the soon future? And how could you achieve the resolution for peace? And another question, how would you see ASEAN can help to achieve this peace resolution? Thank you.
Okay, there are 3 questions, right? The 3 or 2 questions? 2. Short-term situation, right? And what help do you need? This is short question. I mean, I try to shorten question for you. Yep.
Thank you for your question. For the first question, how could I foresee the current situation of Myanmar, current ongoing conflicts of Myanmar? It depends on the many factors, not from one side, because the conflict is influenced by the many factors, internal and external factors. So we cannot, nobody can foresee the future exactly. But as I understand, the conflicts are the military conflicts. So military conflicts should be stopped by if there is no logistics from the external factors to this other side, the conflict could be stopped. And then, as I have mentioned in my presentation, we have developed a political solution for the current situation. So the political solution is a free and fair election and negotiation with all stakeholders. So we are going on that way. And if all stakeholders, especially these ethnic groups, are really willing to give up their weapons and to really want to fight the political solution in peaceful way, the conflict will be stopped. Otherwise, the conflict will be going on that way, and we cannot say about the future. Oh, and the role of ASEAN, right? Okay, yes, the role of ASEAN, as I have mentioned, ASEAN, we believe that ASEAN is also helping us to resolve the solution based on the ASEAN 5-point statement. So we are now cooperating with ASEAN on those 5-point statements, as I have mentioned in my presentation. But according to our country internal law and internal situation, not every fact, not every point in those 5-point statements, but some points could not be implemented for the moment at the moment. So we are really appreciate the ASEAN endeavors to help to resolve the solution in my country.
Thank you very much. Next question, please.
Can I just add
Oh, yes,
something
yes,
on
you
this?
can.
Well, one thing that I have to really stress is that Myanmar is still an ASEAN family member. Okay, so Myanmar is part of us. So what happens in Myanmar will definitely would be our concern if it's developed in a negative way. So for Thailand, for ASEAN as a whole, and I'm sure Myanmar as well as a family member of ASEAN, we share the same goal. That's we want to see Myanmar which is peaceful, stable, and unified. The problem is that there are conflicts, I mean, I've talked to him and he said he prefers the words conflicts rather than turbulences. Turbulence is something that you have to put the seat belt and then try to get through it. You cannot control it, but the conflicts maybe you can try to do something to address the problems and try to solve the conflicts. And for ASEAN's collective effort to help the people of Myanmar, I'm talking about helping the people of Myanmar, which are different ethnic groups, from different groups, to find a peaceful solution. But it has to be Myanmar-led and Myanmar-owned. So this is the statement. This is something that ASEAN all agrees. I think Myanmar is also agreeable to this. I'm not going to get involved in a discussion whether we should call it 5-point consensus or 5-point statement. Now, in contributing to the ASEAN collective efforts for Thailand, I think we have put forward the humanitarian initiative. And we see this initiative as the first step, first small step towards something bigger. And we like to see that we have this process in an effective, credible, and transparent manner. And we believe that the only way forward for peaceful settlement in Myanmar or resolution of conflicts there is through supporting by ASEAN, supporting reconciliation and dialogue. So I think to this aim, Thailand has been trying to intensify our efforts on 3 fronts. One is diplomatic, the other one is peace process, and the other one is humanitarian. And we are ready to do it in every possible way. As far as I remember, Professor Dr. Surakiart, in his keynote speech, he talked about quiet diplomacy as well. I think that's another tool of doing things on diplomatic terms, and yet it could be more effective in some way or another. So I just want to add this.
Thank you very much. Next question, please. Okay, please.
Good afternoon, sir. In the morning, Dr. Surakiart told us that the Sustainable Development Goal for ASEAN is quite far behind the target around 32 years. Now, if we score ourselves from 1 to 10, what should we get from that performance? That's number one. Number two, from the policy recommendation from Lieutenant Colonel, talking about what he would like to see, the collaboration from ASEAN. Is that had been taken into account of ASEAN policy or ASEAN work, or will be taken into account in the future? And if Dr. Suwit can answer these 2 questions, my last question will be to Lieutenant Colonel. Are you happy with that 2 answers from Dr. Suwit? Thank you.
Okay, I pick up on the last question first. I think I can elaborate a little bit more on the 3 fronts that we have been trying to intensify our efforts together with ASEAN. On the diplomatic efforts, we remain committed to the 5-point consensus or 5-point statement in Myanmar's view. And we think that the role of the ASEAN chair as well as the special envoy should continue to be supported. We welcome the latest development. We have the informal consultations among the previous, the current, and the next chair of ASEAN. They come together during the foreign ministers meeting in Vientiane just a couple of weeks ago, and they came up with some initiatives that we could do more in terms of consultation and dialogue. So this is in terms of diplomatic efforts. Second, peace process. It involves multi-stakeholder engagement. So it is crucial that we engage neighboring countries like India or even China to push for multi-party talks. And I believe that they've been trying to think how to help the different groups or different multi-stakeholders to come together and work on this as well. Last but not least, humanitarian efforts. We have been putting focus on alleviating the suffering of the Myanmar people without discrimination. So one thing that we have done is to work with the Myanmar directly and also through the ASEAN chair. Of course, we have the AHA Center or ASEAN Humanitarian Assistance. The center is headquarters is in Jakarta, and next week actually I'm leading a team of the ASEAN department officers, actually the newly recruited diplomats, to be acquainted with the ASEAN Secretariat and also AHA Center. And we want to see the work of AHA Center to be more effective. I think our AHA Center has been internationalized in a way because we have been gaining support from a lot of dialogue partners. To name a few, it's like Japan, Australia, and ROK are among the top supporters of AHA Center. So this is the way to rally support, and in a way it could be ice breaking or even the step forward towards the peace process and also promoting dialogue within Myanmar. So this is something that I think I try to answer your question. Your first question is on, if you can try to help me. I think you mentioned about ASEAN something. Oh, SDGs, right? Sustainable Development Goals. I think what Dr. Suruki had mentioned this morning is that the whole world is lagging behind. We are very, very slow in terms of trying to achieve the 2030 SDGs. But I can tell you that Thailand has been one of the champions and the leading nation in terms of trying to promote SDGs. I have a few slides at the back of my, at the end of my presentation. I don't know whether the technicians can put it up on the screen. But basically, we have been entrusted by ASEAN to be the coordinator for Sustainable Development Cooperation since 2016. And there is no expiry date. So we have continued to work on this, and we try to make sure that we have complementarities between what we are doing at the regional level, which is to implement the vision that we have together. Vision 2025 is going to expire next year, but we're going to have a new vision. And the new vision, of course, we have something on SDGs as well. And we want to make sure that we have complementarities in terms of the real practical steps to achieve ASEAN Vision 2045 together with the 2030 SDGs. So this is something that we are trying to do, but I cannot rate or give you the score on different countries. I think they do annual reports to the UN every year. And there have been different levels of achievements of different states. But I think this issue, if you are really interested, will be really the highlight of the Summit for the Future, which is going to be taking place during the high-level week of the UNGA at the end in the last week of September next month. And I'm not sure whether our delegation will be led by our new Prime Minister or someone else, but for sure Thailand will be highlighting our role as a coordinator for Sustainable Development Cooperation.
So Thailand is one of leading countries on the SDG achievement.
But I think we have done well on some points. There are 14 points, right, of SDGs. But some points I think we still score quite low as well.
Okay. Excuse me, can you repeat the question that you need our flock from Myanmar to respond? I am afraid that I misunderstanding. So
I just ask him a simple question that after Dr. Suwit answer the first two questions, will he happy with that answer?
Can I add some more points? We really appreciate. thank you for Dr. Suwit that you explained how ASEAN is helping to cooperate, helping to implement, to develop peace in Myanmar crisis. And I would like to, at some point on that, ASEAN way to help. So, as I have mentioned, ASEAN is helping us based on the ASEAN 5-point statement and implementing those points as far as they can do. And Myanmar is also cooperating to implement those 5-point statement as part of the situation of Myanmar. But on the other hand, ASEAN try to implement only by those 5-point statement, and Myanmar government believe that ASEAN give pressure on only one-sided because, for instance, from the Myanmar government side, Myanmar government think that Myanmar and ASEAN, Myanmar is of course one of the family member of the ASEAN country, but now Myanmar government believes that Myanmar government is discriminated from the ASEAN, like to the ASEAN summit and to the meetings, Myanmar is not invited, and on the discussion of Myanmar crisis, the voice of Myanmar is not included in that meetings. So solving the Myanmar situation within the ASEAN is without the voice of, at least from the military government side. And then ASEAN, but not officially, ASEAN, Myanmar current government think that ASEAN is trying to talk to the other side of the people, the opposite side of the people. So this is, I think, if we want to deal with the problem, we need to talk to the both side. This is one point. And on the other side, when we are trying to do this, in the country, within the country, the internal conflicts is becoming worse and worse. So the insurgent groups, the armed groups are trying to occupy more territories, and they try to establish their administrative mechanism in their occupied territory. And they think that if they can conduct the military operation and they can occupy the territory, they can get their own territory. So this lead to the national disintegration, and we don't have a chance to a political solution. So that is why I think ASEAN need to talk to the government more in a more relevant way, more effective way, rather than only based on these 5-point statement.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I just add a very positive note on the last point, is that actually there have been participation from Myanmar at some meetings this year. So the chair of Myanmar was not empty, and this is a positive development. So in terms of diplomacy, I'm not talking about the military defense side, because I'm a civil servant and a bureaucrat and a diplomat. I think there is a positive light in the ASEAN meetings, even though there are still some decision that the representatives of Myanmar should be non-political for the foreign ministers' meetings and the summit. During the PMC, there was the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Myanmar present at the Myanmar flag. So that's really, really good development. And I hope that there should be someone from Myanmar at the summit as well. So we don't stop Myanmar from participating. And as I mentioned, and I want to end by this last word, Myanmar is the ASEAN family member, and we are supporting you throughout to ensure that we can help the solution of the conflicts in your country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was told by the my assistant that there will be one more question, but time is up. And I think after this session, both of you will be available for some time in a coffee place. Okay. You can ask them during coffee time. You can ask them during coffee time. Now we come to an end of this session. I would like to conclude this session by thank you very much, Dr. Suwit Klaimongkol and Lieutenant Colonel Gogo Ang from MISIS, Myanmar Institute for Strategic Study and International. Okay. You can introduce your parent unit again. Myanmar Institute.
I'm working as the alternative executive board member of the Myanmar Institute of Strategic and International Studies. Thank you.
Thank you. We try to embrace him in our place, to have them place to speak and to hear them. Okay. Thank you very much, and I would like to give microphone back to the Master of Ceremony, Captain Surasan, my best friend.
Thank you so much. A big round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen. What a great panel, another great panel indeed by all our three panelists here on this occasion on the topic of regional conflicts and security challenges. And of course, we now have the memento presentations, I believe, and we would like to invite Lieutenant General Pongthep Kyaochayo, the Deputy Commanding General of the NDSI, the National Defense Studies Institute, to present tokens of appreciation to all our panelists here. What a great topic to start off in the afternoon as well. Obviously, we understand the challenges in the region that we are faced with, the issues concerning, obviously, ASEAN family in particular. A big round of applause, please. Thank you, and also to another speaker, Dr. Suwit Mankla from the Department of ASEAN, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thank you.
Okay, and also to our moderator, Rear Admiral Don Tipanan.
Thank you so much to all our three speakers. Of course, now we would like to ask Air Chief Marshal Poomjai to join in for a group picture, please. เรียนเชิญท่านผู้บัญชาการสถาบันวิชาการป้องกันประเทศด้วยนะครับพลอากาศเอกภูมิใจเลขสุนทรากรมาร่วมด้วยแล้วก็ and we also have the director of the Strategic Study Center Major General นิรุตดวงปัญญา joining in as well แล้วก็ทางผู้อำนวยการศูนย์ศึกษายุทธศาสตร์นะครับพลตรีนิรุตมาร่วมด้วยครับเอาละครับพร้อมนะครับ You ready? On the count to 3 1 2 3 Okay, another big round of applause please, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much to all our speakers and the gentlemen on this stage. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I think another great session and very, what do you call it, the food for the brain as well. And now probably need to take a break for the restroom and of course some tea and coffee. We would like to take about 15 minutes for you to stretch your legs, walk around and maybe mingle and talk to your colleagues and your new acquaintances. So 15 minutes will be the break.
Yes, and if you need to leave this session, may I remind you to please return the headphones for interpretation to our staff as well.
All right, so 15 minutes it is, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll be back here by 3:15. 3:15. Okay, for the third and final session of the day. I can assure you that the next session will be equally interesting as well. So please stay around, and of course we'll continue with the third session. ในช่วงนี้ขอเรียนเชิญทุกท่านนะครับไปพักเบรก15 นาทีนะครับเราจะมาพบกันในห้องนี้อีกทีหนึ่งในเวลา 15:15 นาทีนะครับเดี๋ยวเรามาพบกันครับ our speakers, the panelists, as well as the moderator. So please proceed to the stage, to our panelists here and the speaker. มาสู่เซสชั่นที่3นะครับของวันนี้เรามีทั้งหมดผู้พูดนะครับหรือวิทยากรของเราทั้งหมด3ท่านแล้ว moderator อีก1ท่านนะครับ Okay, so let's go ahead then. This session on energy and environmental security implications on sustainable peace in the region. So who do we have here?
So our distinguished panelists include Dr. Virginia Bakay-Watson from the US, Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies, or APCSS, Dr. Albert Salamanca from Stockholm Environment Institute, and Dr. Buranin Rattanasombat from Energy Sector of Thailand. And this session will be moderated by Dr. Yawati Achawangkoon.
So allow me just to read out the bios of individuals present here on the stage. Dr. Virginia Bakay-Watson is a faculty member at the College of Security Studies, and also Daniel K. Inoue, Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies in Honolulu, Hawaii. Her expertise includes Southeast Asian studies, water security, technology, and strategic foresight. With degrees from institutions in the Philippines, Cornell University, and the University of Denver, she focuses on green security, technology and power dynamics, and Southeast Asian geopolitics, offering valuable insights into regional and global security. And by the way, she's also now the current visiting professor of Meiji University of Japan.
And next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Albert Salamanca. He is Senior Research Fellow at the Stockholm Environment Institute Asia Center. With over 20 years of experience in climate change, adaptation, and sustainable development, he leads the Climate Change Disasters and Development Cluster, overseeing research on regional climate resilience. Dr. Salamanca's work spans ecological knowledge, ecosystem adaptation, and resource rights. He contributes to various international projects and advises on sustainable development initiatives, focusing on bridging science and policy in Asia.
And our third speaker is Dr. Buranin Rattanasombat. He's the Chief New Business and Infrastructure Officer at PTT Public Company Limited, a major Thai energy firm. He has a PhD in management and also Master of Business Administration or MBA and a bachelor's degree in science. Dr. Buranin is an expert in innovation and strategy, chairs several companies and serves on various boards. His work in energy and sustainability makes him a leading figure in Thailand's business sector.
And of course, our moderator today, Dr. Yawati Achawangkoon. He's a leading expert in alternative energy in Thailand's Department of Alternative Energy Development and Efficiency, or DEDE. He is the chief of the Alternative Energy Monitoring and Evaluation Subdivision. Dr. Yawati holds a PhD in Systems Engineering from Mie University, Japan, and a bachelor's in Mechanical Engineering from Mahidol University, Thailand. He has extensive experience in renewable energy and has published and presented widely on sustainable energy solutions. And now I'd like to give the floor to our moderator, Dr. Yawati.
Could I have a big hand now, ladies and gentlemen, to our panel members here. And Dr. Yawati, now you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. and Madam MC. สวัสดีครับ distinguished guests, distinguished panelists, fellow participants, ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon. Please allow me to introduce myself again. My name is Yawati Achawangkoon. I am a senior engineer from the Department of Alternative Energy Development and Efficiency of Ministry of Energy, Thailand. Today, it's an honor and pleasure to serve as the moderator of this afternoon panel discussion entitled Energy and Environmental Security Implications on Sustainable Peace in the Region. Ladies and gentlemen, I can say that it is unforgivable if we ignore the climate impact and the global warming issue you can say that many great innovation which take place by the climate impact. You can see that about the serious flood in the northern part of Thailand. In the foreign country, you can see that many phenomena you never seen before, like the earthquake in Taiwan, or the heat wave, or the thing like the, especially for the epidemic and pandemic, like the COVID-19 just passed it. Okay, this one is show that why we should concentrate on to pay attention on how to solve the problem, how to cope with the climate change and the global warming. As Thailand make a pledge during the COP26 in Glasgow in year 20 and 21 that Thailand aspire to achieve the carbon neutrality by the year 2050 and the net zero carbon emission by year 20 and 65 respectively. This shows the effort of Thailand in order to commit the low carbon society. This means we should do the extreme exercise and the homework in order to cope with our future with serious climate impact. Okay, I have to say that it is related to our discussion today that we have the panelists, we have the expert in various energy and environmental teams that we will share their perspective on the opinion. Okay, let's get down our business. Fortunately, today we have three of the experts who can share their perspective about the energy and environmental security and to be the harmonized between the energy and the environmental nexus. Okay, not only to move forward to the greener and the cleaner energy and the low carbon society, we should consider for the affordability for the people in order to pay for the energy and electric accessibility. Okay, firstly, may I invite Dr. Virginia Bakai Watson as the first panelist. Okay, please, Dr. Virginia, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Aloha. Aloha. First off, I'd like to thank the organizers, sir, distinguished guests, of course, NDI and SSI and all the friends here. Thank you for inviting me to come to Bangkok, and really appreciate it. And of course, it's a privilege and an honor to be a part of the roster of speakers that you have lined up for this two-day event. So thank you very much. And the rejoinder, of course, as per usual, that the views I express today are mine and mine alone. They do not represent the United States government, nor that of the United States Department of Defense, nor that of the Daniel K. Inouye, Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies in Honolulu, Hawaii. The development of this topic actually was a very intriguing one because I was given the topic to talk about energy, environment, and the implications for sustainable peace. So sustainable peace, the logic of my thinking was there's got to be some sustainable war too, because peace and war go together. And so that's how I started developing the topic. And I'd like to start off by saying that in 2023, November last year, the United Nations came out with a publication, and it said that right now, assuming that we are following the policies and the sort of all the practices that we have in energy and the environment, by 2030, that's supposed to be the milestone year, we would have actually increased our heat generated pollution by 9%, and that's really way off the mark of the intended goal. And the intended goal, of course, is to reduce our consumption, reduce the emissions by 44% by 2030. And that's not happening right now, right? And so we'll see now exactly what's going on in terms of climate change, energy, and defense as a nexus issue under the rubric of sustainability. This is important because we know that these issues are of existential nature. Water is known in economics as a price inelastic good. That is, if no water, with water you have to buy. Whatever the price of water, you have to buy it, because without water you die. Same thing as food security and some other security issues under climate change, right? And so I'm not going to go through this because you'll have a copy of these slides anyway, but these are some of the more recent changes in climate that's very observable, and that says that climate change is no longer climate change. It's actually a crisis in the making as we speak. And so that's the language and the discourse is already becoming that such that it's a crisis right now. In the Indo-Pacific region, gradual line going up, increase in the severity, increase in the frequency, if not severity, increase in the number of disasters that are happening, and so it is not looking good for the Indo-Pacific region. And this was released by the International Energy Agency just last month, and this is from Southeast Asia in particular. You will see, of course, that one thing that pops out right away is Singapore is the only country that's doing pretty good. You've got low exposure in all these manifestations of a climate crisis in the sub-region, and the others are a mix, right? And for Thailand, concerns about river flooding, and definitely, and the only one you're not really getting is tropical storms, which the Philippines is getting pummeled with at 9.2, way above the average of 1.6. And of course, you have other countries too. Vietnam, also problematic in terms of river flooding and coastal flooding. So the point of this, of course, is to tell you that all these countries in Southeast Asia will have very diverse approaches and different priorities in terms of the environmental and energy issues, and the insecurities that come out of it will be contextualized for every issue, for every country. But that doesn't mean that they can't cooperate, obviously, right? And so that data really resonates with the World Economic Forum data that really says extreme weather is #1 top priority in the world now, amongst policymakers that they've surveyed and the like. And this is something that's not a surprise. It's been going on. This is a report that I took from the 2021 report of the top risks landscape. 7 years in a row now, extreme weather is really the #1 top risk by likelihood, and it's really an inevitable phenomenon that we're going to be faced with, and it's actually being supplemented with climate action failure and natural disasters to boot. So it's evolved steadily from greenhouse gas emissions here, maybe placed at #3 about 11 years ago, to #2, and finally #1. This is the evolution of the policy priority of climate change going into the high policy table as we speak. So it's now recognized by a lot of countries that they should really pay mind to it in a very important way. So where are we at right now? The profile of a lot of the countries as far as environment is concerned is that the regime for environmental protection, environmental change, even the languages, is not as mature. It is varied, and it's a whole spectrum that runs from we don't have any policy whatsoever to we have a fully developed, maybe Singapore has a whole set of policies that we are ready to face whatever the challenges that are going to be given to us by Mother Nature via energy and climate change. But the securitization of climate change is a development as of late. It's probably the last development right now in the evolution of the policy. And for some countries, it's beyond, just a little bit short of humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. And then for some countries, very few have really developed adaptation plans for military, civilian security institutions, and at the same time, even linking up irregular warfare and climate literacy. Right? When you think about irregular warfare, it could be gray zone, it could be warfare in the cyber domain, it could be misinformation and disinformation that leads one to perhaps have the wrong literacy in that respect. So rich in research for this one for sure. The framework here that I see, sort of like a schematic that would best capture why we need to study what we need to study now, this nexus issue, is because defense, for the most part, consumes the most energy, if not one of the most highest consumers of energy. That's the defense institutions all over the world. The United States defense is actually the number one, single most institutional user of energy in the world. That's energy, and then you've got, of course, extreme weather. The convergence of these three is in the perfect storm in that respect. Why? If you have an energy crisis, and of course, the relationship before that, the relationship between weather, energy, and defense is very evident. You have energy that can also affect extreme weather in good and bad ways, right? You have coal energy, not good for the environment, but renewables are. You've got defense in crisis, but it is also expected to sort of look out, defend territory where necessary, and at the same time can be leads in providing energy renewable programs and the like, because they're the number one users. Extreme weather, of course, but weather can also help defense. It can also not. It can ruin installations. It can, all the cables, all the infrastructure, the installations can be ruined by climate change, disasters and the like. And so it could be the impact worse here, it could be the best. But this, I'm just showing you the impact that's worse here. And this is not linear, but you're thinking about if there's a climate effect, then you're affected right away, in this case, the institutions, and then it becomes a systemic if it becomes such a regular, routinary occurrence. And finally, the strategic impacts of all these, the convergence of these particular sets of issues. And so, for the military climate-related disaster, and feel free to please critique this, of course, but you can see that for the primary impact, you think about localized disasters, and then you have the military respond, the first responders, and so forth, right? You move on to secondary impact, and the disaster becomes very frequent, more scale, force, duration, bigger, and the security forces, law enforcement, and defense institutions are really taxed. They're starting to get challenged, undermine military training, and then you need more money and resources, and so forth. And at the same time, personnel issues also come to the fore. Injury, the tempo of work, operational tempo, and so forth. And finally, in the tertiary impact, the long-term impacts of the climate-related disasters would be something along the lines of, you have to make doctrinal changes, how you conduct force posture, and the like. And you can see the effect of that, and you have to make and revise new policies in place, new strategies, your new defense strategy that will reflect the realities on the ground. So that's just a schematic. As Brendan Owens, who's the DoD Chief Sustainability Officer, note a sustainability officer in the Department of Defense. Okay. So moving forward, how have institutions responded? First, this is culled from interviews, from read-ups, from conversations for sure, and at the same time also from just pure research, all sorts of sources here. The first one is climate change, energy security. They are goals that should be clearly integrated into national security and military planning processes. If you haven't done so already, they say this is a must-do. Okay. For example, this is one person said, how do you conceptualize climate change and energy security within a defense strategy? How do you do that? So the development of a strategic framework. In the case of the British, what they did was identify the climate hazards, the second-order effects, and the impacts of climate on the readiness given these four variables. And that's how they plan to respond to it, via, basically, the also incorporation of a climate change governance right in the Ministry of Defense. So the boxes here in the red indicate the new sort of new tasking, new organizational, in a way, improvements, innovations that directly speak to the problem of climate change and what it is that the defense institutions in UK are doing. So that's one example. Another example, of course, EU, is the creation of a defense roadmap that really incorporates climate change as a matter of national security and impact of that. In no uncertain terms, very clear language, very simple. It's no need to explain to you exactly what they're saying here, right? And it poses a double challenge and so forth. Another example, the Swedish Armed Forces, how did they do that? They tied up the notion of sustainability, sustainable defense in with their, what do you call this? Their development goals, sustainable development goals. That was their conceptualization was, let's tie up SDG with defense, and that's how we're going to develop our framework and approach to defend and develop our forces in the future. And that's a Swedish example, and they call it sustainable defense. Okay? And of course, the United States, from their 2021 sort of release of their own climate adaptation plans, nothing really, nothing new per se, except that they are really letting people know that they're trying to be responsive to climate change. And these are all the nice words, and you can read through that if you want. But this is, of course, some of the sort of aims of these climate adaptation plans of the United States Department of Defense. Here are the books, journals. These are free. You can even access it online, I believe. And so you can see that these are no longer just conversations that are outside of the purview of defense, but really including them already in the conversation. According to them, the priorities would be that. The second one is knowing your department's carbon and ecological footprint. You must know even your energy footprint. A lot of times I've discovered this is kind of a secret. Nobody wants to share how big or small their footprints are. So, but so you know what you know, right? And you know how to pursue sort of trying to catalog this and then see whether you are doing good, not so good, and moving towards the future. This is an example again, the 8th report of session about a couple of years ago to last year in the UK House of Commons. And so they said, this is our baseline, defense carbon. This is what we can directly influence, changing the costings, the calculations of how much this, that, the economics of it, the finance of it, to those that we can directly influence, just indirectly influence. Basically, still a very comprehensive look at how basically the notion of climate change can affect defense and their performance and the operations in the future, their preparations. Third priority, you've heard it the whole day, the song of multi-stakeholder forum. This includes, in addition, however, scientists. There seems to be a gap between science and actions of policymakers. And so you need people to really bridge the gap between the science and the policymakers, as they're very important bridge makers. So part of that is, of course, to establish coherence across all the departments of your country, gap identification, and the development of narratives for your public. Different publics, different messages, different ways of delivering the same message, amongst other things. This is what I got in my notes. And of course, these are my final thoughts. The fight is on all fronts. This is what you call a poly-crisis. The existence of crisis that has many heads, has many dimensions, and this is what it's turning out to be. That nexus of and the environment, energy, and development and defense is what you call that fight, that it being on all fronts. The environment is unpredictable and so forth, and so one American general said that the thing that's different about climate change is that we know something's going to happen down the road, but the planning has to happen today. The planning, to the best that you can, you need to do it now. It is now. No delays necessary, right? Because of the nature of the challenge. This is what's going to happen with the increases in temperature. You could, in fact, incorporate this into the planning as well, and just kind of adapt it and sort of like see what's going to happen further out. If there's a 2-degree increase and a 3-degree increase, what's going to happen, right? And this is just some of the issues. And destruction is not an option. existential threat is also the source of life. The sea, the oceans, the plants, rain, all these are the object, in a way, of that you're defending your territories, your national security, and so forth. But you can't also, of course, destroy them. Cannot possibly do that. And I have a few thoughts on sustainability. It seems to me that the literature and the conversations I've had sort of spells out sustainability here as a strategic opportunity from a geopolitical lens to create or redefine enhanced leverage power and influence. Maybe recasting the haves and have-nots in the future, all right? That's sort of a thought that I said, maybe that's the way to think about it. As I said, this is one way. It's a very tight circle there amongst these three. The early adapters will accrue power based on the ability to define what sustainability is. What is sustainability? In 1987, the Norwegian Prime Minister defined sustainable development as the ability of the current generations to protect and meet their needs without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet theirs. That's the definition of sustainable development. But, so you have to, that's something that you need to think about. Is that really something that we can do right now, and to what extent? And of course, being better able to prepare. As I said, I quoted the American General earlier on. It will become an indispensable organizing principle for creating national advantage. There are already talks about how sustainability can be used as the organizing principle for building strategic advantage. And so that's, again, another new conversation that's going to be inserted in the daily mundane meetings of all the institutions of government, right? It's a very important, I think, principle. Within this framework, is sustainability, this is just food for thought, is it a paradigm that will redefine the rules and conduct of war and peace? When you think about the notion of, we mentioned early this morning, technologies, industrial revolution, the fourth industrial revolution today that features the emerging technologies and so forth. How does that square off with the notion of the sustainability framework in the conduct of war and peace? The Industrial Revolution is very interesting because it really creates a new dynamic. The Industrial Revolution, including the cyber war, not just only created a new domain, the virtual domain, but what I call, it's created this concept of blur and betweenness, meaning it created the gray zone dynamics. It's sort of confused the division between illegitimate and legitimate ways of doing war. Between war and peace, when do you know when war is ended or not? And peace, conditions of peace. Between state and non-state actors is, again, blurred and in between. It's developing a new normative construct, and that is something that ought to be considered when you think about sustainability. If it is a revolutionary concept, then it should come from, actions coming from sustainability should be trying to find solutions by actors and thinkers who are thinking very differently from the leaders of today. Can the leaders of today think that way? In other words, that's the point. That's one of the other points I wanted to make here, all right? And of course, the notion of global governance. Here, I insert the notion of the role of the transnational, the big tech or big transnational corporations. The de minimis role of the state in technology, especially we have off-the-shelf technology now, right? The state almost has nothing to do with technological development and the trajectory of the technological development. Their minimal role puts in the hands the power of technological creation and value creation in the hands of the private sector. So, if that is the case, then how would you design or redesign global governance? What does it do for the state as it exists today, and how would you partner up notions of private sector and the public sector in a genuine way that answers to the notion of sustainability, if it is a revolutionary paradigm indeed? And who will lead? Who will lead does not necessarily mean who should lead. Who should lead are those qualified to lead. Who can lead have the resources. So the question is, again, who are the leaders when you try to adapt the sustainability framework moving forward to the future? I think that's all I have. I can say that for at least to end this, that sustainability, I was just writing down, is a transitory and revolutionary concept that is, in a way, is now challenging existing norms. It is creating new, it has to. Sustainability, for it to work, has to create new norms, norm construction. At the same time also, it will have to it rests on different set of assumptions of the concept of reality and the concept of what's on the ground. Final word is, I was thinking, we talked about transitions a lot this morning. So I said, well, what would it be if we think in terms of transitions, just like all the previous speakers this morning posited, if we think in terms of transitions and not in terms of regions. So some speakers this morning, of course, noted the importance of regions and so forth, countries. But if you're suggesting that we need to shift paradigm, that this is a transition stage, you used a lot of words this morning that signify transitions and changes, then how does that add up, right? Where does all this sort of architecture we have fit in this new, if you're assuming that the sustainability paradigm is indeed a paradigm for the future. Thank you for your kind attention, and I'm done.
So thank you very much, Dr. Virginia, for your insightful and interesting presentation. Okay, let me summarize the key idea for Dr. Virginia's presentation. That Dr. Virginia discussed for the evolution of the nation perspective on the climate change from indifferent to a high priority strategic issue. She also highlights the growing trend of the defense and military institutions integrating climate change into the strategic document by reflecting its comprehensive security implication. She mentioned about the climate change, energy, and environmental nexus, including to how to manage the nexus and how to arrange the carbon and ecological footprint. In addition, Dr. Virginia suggests to explore how leading nations are addressing this issue and the complex implication of the sustainability for national defense. Okay, very interesting issue. Okay, for next, may I invite Dr. Albert to the podium to describe his perspective about the energy environmental security. Yes, Dr. Albert, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Moderator. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Albert Salamanca. I'm with the Stockholm Environment Institute. My organization is Swedish, but I'm based at Chulalongkorn University. Okay, so I'm going to talk about transboundary climate risk and environmental security. And earlier, Dr. Watson asked the question, will the transition to global sustainability be peaceful? I'm afraid my answer might not be, right? I'm going to show in my presentation that it might not be from the context of climate change adaptation, from the context of loss and damage, and that will be where I'm coming from, because the work that I do at Stockholm Environment Institute is on climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction. So just to introduce my organization, it's called SEI, Stockholm Environment Institute, which was founded in 1989, after the United Nations Conference on the Human Environment, which was held in 1972, and there was a declaration that came out. And then part of that declaration was to create an international organization, and one of them is the Stockholm Environment Institute. And we have several offices globally, and our office in Asia is in Thailand, in Bangkok, at Chulalongkorn University. So this is the Asia office. And as Dr. Watson already mentioned also, she went through the science of climate change. And this is from the IPCC, which is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And basically what they've said is that Recent changes in the climate are widespread, rapid, and intensifying, and unprecedented in thousands of years. So this is the global state of knowledge as being assessed by IPCC. IPCC is composed of at least 1,000 scientists globally. And the recent report that they have released, I think 2 years ago, was the Assessment Report 6. Now they're working on Assessment Report 7. In fact, the IPCC will hold its retreat in Bangkok in December to discuss how the next report is going to be formulated. And based on the assessment report that's being published, it is indisputable that human activities are causing climate change, making extreme events, including heat waves. So we know that this year in particular, we've experienced heat waves. Heavy rainfall, what's happening in Nan, in the north and northeast. Droughts are frequent and severe. And just to mention a bit about Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia, the region that we've been discussing since this morning, is 9% of the world's population, 6% of the world's GDP, and 4% of the world's energy consumption. So all of us consumes about 4% of global energy consumption. And then we're expected to grow to at least 800 million people by 2050. So imagine the energy demand when we get to that point. And then 8 out of the 10 countries in the region have announced targets for carbon neutrality by 2050. But the thing is that Philippines and Indonesia have the highest coal consumption this year of at least 60% of their energy mix. So whether that carbon neutrality will be achieved by 2050 is something else, unless we will be able to do something about it now. And again, this is the region. If you look at the region compared to, in terms of carbon dioxide total emissions, all other global economies, the region, the emissions is not really as big. It doesn't mean it's not consequential, but that emission is not really as big compared to other major global economies. In fact, in the region, Indonesia has the highest one. But we suffer more. So we contribute less to greenhouse gas emissions, but we suffer more in the region. And if you look at, in terms of the total risk, so this is the report that was released last year, Southeast Asia has the highest in terms of exposure and vulnerability to all kinds of risks, particularly disaster and climate-related risks, compared to other regions in Asia. And some of these countries, like Philippines, Indonesia, Myanmar, Vietnam, Thailand, are in the top 25. See, in the top 25, Philippines, Indonesia, Myanmar, Vietnam, and Thailand are there. And this is in terms of the riskscape, in terms of thinking, in terms of what are the sources of risk in the region. So it's not only climate risk, but you have to also to think in terms of the seismic and tsunami hazards. So this year is the 20th anniversary of the Indian Ocean tsunami. I'm sure a number of you would still remember what happened in Phuket, in Andaman Sea during that time. Thousands of people died, and this year is the 20th year anniversary. So if you look at in terms of volcanic hazards, a lot of volcanoes actually lined. So this is the Pacific Ring of Fire. Indonesia to the Philippines, there's a lot of volcanoes. So there's a lot of sources of seismic and tsunami hazards there. And also from the Pacific, that's where also typhoons are being generated. That's why the Philippines is one of those countries that will be affected by typhoons, as they are being generated from the Pacific. I'm moving this direction. And in terms of sea level rise, a number of cities where there would be like 15 to 30 million people will be affected. See, the blue ones is where sea level rise will occur in the region. So there's a lot of hazards to think about. So not only in terms of climate hazards, but there are also other disaster hazards. Now, going back to climate change, there are three elements in our response to climate change. One is that there is the mitigation. This is where we need to reduce the emissions of greenhouse gases. We also need to adapt, because it will take a while for greenhouse gas emissions to be reduced, but impacts are occurring now, so we need to adapt. So like, for example, what's happening in Nan right now, and other northern provinces or northeastern provinces, they're being affected by flooding. So we need adaptation now. We need to address adaptation. But adaptation also has a limit, and that's why we have also to think in terms of loss and damage. In other words, if we have to fail, we have to ensure that we fail safely, right? Because the scale of the challenge is such that no matter the adaptations that we're going to have, it might not be enough to address the challenge. So if we have to fail, might as well make it safely so that it won't affect a lot of people. So these are some of the implications in terms of conflict and security. One is that the demands for, particularly for the so-called energy transition metals or critical transition minerals such as copper, nickel, and rare earths are so massive for the renewable energy that it has implication already on security, on conflict and security. So this is part of the answer to the question that Dr. Watson had raised, whether the transition is going to be peaceful. Because right now there's a fight for copper, nickel, and rare earths for the renewable energy technologies. We also have to look at the transboundary implications of our adaptation. Because what we're arguing is that adaptation is not necessarily only at the national level. One country's adaptation can also affect other countries. So we also have to think in terms of those transboundary climate risks. And then finally, we have also to think in terms of the security issues associated with losses and damages. And again, this is the region. This is Southeast Asia. So if you think in terms of adaptation, readiness, and vulnerability in Southeast Asia, so this is based on the NDGAIN data. So this is the Notre Dame Global Adaptation Index. If you look at that data, we can more or less group countries in terms of their low readiness, in other words, low adaptive capacity, and readiness as defined as constituted of economic factors, governance, and social conditions. And then vulnerability means exposure, sensitivity, and adaptive capacity. These countries, Indonesia, Philippines, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar, and Timor-Leste, have low readiness and high vulnerability. But countries such, so more or less like Thailand is in the border. But countries such as Brunei, Malaysia, Singapore have high readiness and low vulnerability. But if you look at also here, the countries on this particular quadrant also have where there are tensions or conflicts with regards to natural resources. So these are just some of the news items that I was able to look for online with regards to what's happening now this is the case of nickel. So in Indonesia and the Philippines, because there's so much demands, the price of nickel has just skyrocketed up because nickel is important to intensify the battery for electric vehicles. So the demand for nickel is just so high, the price is just so massive and so expensive right now for nickels that there's a lot of mining going on. And because there's a lot of mining happening also, there's a lot of conflict at the local levels. A lot of, especially islands in the Philippines and Indonesia are being mined for nickel. And of course, with that, there's going to be conflict with the local population. And this is the case with rare earths. So again, these are all the headlines with regards to rare earths in Myanmar, on how rare earths is actually also creating conflict because there's just massive environmental impacts with regards to mining of rare earths. Again, mining is rare earth is an important part in the batteries that we have, that we're using right now, in the technologies that we're using right now, to increase the magnetism. For example, in wind turbines, to increase the magnetism, we need rare earths. And they can be supplied only in certain places. And one of those places where you will find rare earths is in Myanmar. So, with those earlier discussions, will the transition to sustainability be peaceful? I think that sort of, proved the point, that presentation. But again, we have to look at also the transboundary climate risks. What are some of those climate risks? And then transboundary climate risks, these are risks that propagate through interdependencies between countries. And there are a few dimensions. One of those dimensions is the biophysical systems. So if you imagine the flow of water, for example, from one country to another. And people. So for example, the movement of people from Myanmar to Thailand, or Laos to Thailand, or Cambodia to Thailand. It could be also climate related. And then the movement of trade and investments. So these are some of the processes through which transboundary climate risk could occur. Now, these are just some examples. So again, biophysical systems, when climate change disrupts the flow of transboundary rivers and aquifers. And then people, when climate change influences patterns of migration and displacement. And then trade and supply chain, when climate change damages infrastructure projects, the production or distributions of goods, services, and critical raw materials. So what happened is that climate risk could have direct impacts on a country. So like, for example, the flooding that's happening right now is a direct impact. But climate risk could also have indirect impacts. So for example, Singapore is dependent for rice supply from Thailand. What if there's a lot of flooding in Thailand that they won't be able to supply rice anymore to Singapore? So where would Singapore, Singapore has to think about where else can they get rice, right, to survive, because rice for Asians is really life. So those are some of the indirect impacts, right? Or maybe also right now there are beginning to show some movements, some migrations from Myanmar that are climate related. So we need to think also about that. But it doesn't mean, when we think about this, that it doesn't mean that we need to close our borders. But instead, we need to think about the needs of these vulnerable groups and communities. Because they might not have options but to cross borders. And we also have to think all these discussions about climate change in the context of poverty in the region. Because again, climate change is not separate from the different kinds of poverty that we have in the region. So there's so-called residual poverty and equal poverty. There's also people who are impoverished due to development, and there are also migrants that are registered and unregistered in other countries. They are also poor, and they're part of the whole poverty map that we have in the region. And then this is just some of the flows with regards to people. So like, for example, some people from Myanmar going into Thailand, some from Cambodia to Thailand, or Indonesia going to Malaysia, or some of them going to Singapore. So these are just some of the routes. And we have to really think about this to make sure that our migration would respond to the needs. Our migration policies would respond to the needs of vulnerable groups and communities. And this is just a quote from the work done by my colleagues on international labor migration in Malaysia and Bangkok. And this is a quote from a migrant from Myanmar. So basically, this guy said, it is sometimes time to plant crops and rice, but it's still not raining. So they need to plant, but it's not raining. The area becomes a drought-prone area. Flooding occurs from time to time, destroying our farm. I had a few options where I was unable to earn an income. As a result, I migrated to Thailand due to political, environmental, and economic issues. So the causes of migrations are quite complicated rather than due to a single factor, and climate could be one of those driving factors. And this is just to show how the systems in the region are connected. So this is the Tonle Sap. At a certain time of the year, maybe around this time, water in the Tonle Sap coming from upstream of the Mekong, push the water up. So that's why it's expanding. And this is called the flood pulse. So that particular expansion becomes an ecological signal to fish in this area. So again, the Tonle Sap connects Cambodia and Vietnam, and that connection is important. And with regards to loss and damage, so just to show you some of the examples of losses and damages here. So all of this have implications on conflict and security. So for example, loss of territory due to climate change, loss of homeland, uninhabitability, displacement, and maybe there's also rise of organized crime and terrorism, insecurities. All of this are different types of losses and damages. And that needs to be considered also in the context of climate change. And this is one of the reasons why loss and damage needs to be factored in the way we plan our security. It's because extreme weather events and slow onset processes caused by climate change are unprecedented in intensity, frequency, location, and timing, and they can also compound other events. And then they are dynamic. This risk and dynamic, highly uncertain, and will increase unpredictably. Consecutive and compounding climate impacts produce unpredictable cascades of losses and damages. So in other words, if those different risks cascades and compound, there could be other risks that will be created. And losses and damages disproportionately impact marginalized groups and people living in poverty. So again, we need to think also about poverty. And then when we estimate losses and damages, we also have to think in terms of the non-economic losses and damages, not only the economic ones. And loss and damage are based on values and lived experiences of people. And finally, loss and damage are context-specific. I would argue that all of this could be a source of insecurities, could lead to stresses, shocks, and eventually some forms of conflicts that might occur in those particular areas that are prone to this. So that's why we have to really think about transboundary climate risk, because if left unchecked, they can cascade and impede or reverse development, right? It could lead to more poverty. And also because transboundary climate risk is now becoming an important part of climate diplomacy. There's a surging interest around transboundary climate risk and the COP that's happening. In fact, the COP 29 is happening this year in Azerbaijan, so there's a lot of discussions around that. And more importantly, and this is the topic of our discussion today, is that they can escalate geopolitical instability and affect peace and security. But when you talk about climate security in the region, particularly in Southeast Asia, this is according to Meli Caballero Anthony, who works on non-traditional security, said the term climate security are hardly found in Southeast Asia. And there seems to be a lot of reservations, particularly from the security establishment, to discuss about climate security. I think you know the reasons why this might be the case, but I think if we really wanted to be serious about responding to the climate crisis, then maybe we need to think about climate security. And countries need to work collaboratively because of this transboundary climate risk. We also have to ensure that our adaptation is carried out in a manner that takes into consideration other countries. And then we need to harness opportunities together to achieve resilience. Now, let me just introduce to you, this is a global initiative that at SEI, my organization has initiated together with all other organizations. It's called Adaptation Without Borders. This is a partnership that brings together several organizations across 4 continents to identify and assess transboundary climate risk, appraise policy options to manage those risks, catalyze stronger international and multilateral cooperation on adaptation, and could develop solutions. So this is now, if you want to find more, you can just go to Adaptation Without Borders. So this is a global initiative that we're leading together with other partners to think about adaptation as something that every country should do together, rather than each of the country will deal separately on their own. And that would be the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Albert, for your insightful perspective. Okay, Dr. Albert presents about the transboundary climate risk and environmental security. He mentioned about the energy situation in ASEAN member states, and he also present about the statistics of the global climate risk, including the sensitive country. And he also mentioned about for this year, it had passed 2 decades since the great tsunami which took place in Indian Ocean. And he also gave the example about the circumstance on the rare earth like nickel in Indonesia and as well as the rare earth in Myanmar. He also highlight about the biophysical system, including the trade and financial, and for the ASEAN member state, poverty factor, including the migration corridor. He mentioned about the key feature of the loss and the damage risk, and he also analyzed for the transboundary climate risk concern. And lastly, he also suggests about the collaboratively work among the region in order to contribute the peace, peaceful and security. Okay, and the next panelist, may I invite Dr. Buranin Ratanasombat, the third panelist, to share his perspective corresponding to the energy environmental. Okay, Dr. Buranin, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you for Dr. Yawati for the nice introduction me and Air Chief Marshal Phumjai Lektasunthorn, and ladies and gentlemen, my name is Buranin Ratanasombat. I am Chief of New Business and Infrastructure from PTT Public Company. PTT is a national energy company. In the beginning, we are belonging of Ministry of Defense. The original logo is the T Soldier, is the Army, Navy, and Air Force. And after that, we are belonging the Ministry of Industry. And right now, we are belonging of Ministry of Energy. Our aim of the company is to make sure to make the energy security, and we do the energy business and related. For our topic today, I would like to explain you about the energy and environment security of the Thailand. I think I heard from Dr. Virginia and Dr. Albert. The one thing that they speak is the same. Global is a risk in terms of the energy security and the climate risk, and also the regional and is a risk also. For our topic today, I would like to explain you about the Thailand energy situation and aim to move toward to the net zero session. And after that, we talk about the PTT as a national energy company, the direction toward sustainable Thailand goals. First, I would like to show you about the energy consumption and also the energy supply. The fact of the Thailand energy consumption is around 106 million ton oil equivalents per year. We are just only the 1% of the global consumption. We cannot be a leader, we just a follower when we talk about the energy security and the climate change. Second, we are net imported energy country, while the energy security is important for us in terms not only in terms of the energy, in terms of national security, the energy are important. When you look about our consumption, when you look about the overconsumption, the cumulative average growth rate is around 1.5%, nearly the Thailand GDP growth. And in the future, we plan to make more efficient the energy consumption. It should be lower, it's a minus, it's around 0.3%. This is our aim. And also, when we look the energy mix, I think that most of the 70% is come from the fossil. It's like a coal, crude oil, and also the natural gas. We just only allow the 10% and move to the 15% and 25% in 2030 for the makes the renewable energy. And also in the future is 2050, we try to use the renewable energy around the 48%. This is the aim. And in terms of the sector that we use the energy, the industrial sector and transportation is around 70%. And the household is around 12%, and agriculture is around 8%. This is the Thailand energy consumption. I think when we look back to the supply, in terms of the Thailand situation, we are the net imported energy. In terms of the natural gas, we can produce the natural gas in Gulf of Thailand around 30 years ago. And right now, it's 50% of the natural gas come from the Gulf of Thailand. And also around 50% we imported from the neighboring country like Myanmar, and also to import the LNG from the Middle East and United States, and also in the Africa to use the natural gas in terms of the liquid form. And also we have a little bit in terms of the offshore gas producer in Thailand. And we have the 6 gas separation plant. We can use the gas separation plants in terms of to develop the petrochemical feedstock, and also we use the methane, the methane C1 for the power industry sector. This is why PTT is a thing about we need to make more gas in terms of the exploration and production in Gulf of Thailand, and also develop the LNG facility for the imported in the future. For the oils, around the 88% we imported the crude oil from Malaysia and Middle East, and like Dubai, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia. This is around the 88%. And we just only 12% we have the crude condensate in Gulf of Thailand. We have around the 5 refinery is capacity is 1.2 million barrels per day, and our consumption is around 1 million per day. We have the excess the refined product to export to neighboring country and to the China and the Singapore market. When we talk about the imported gas or imported the crude oil, I think that one thing we we have if there's some problem in Middle East, sometimes we cannot import the gas or imported the oil. Why the national security is the need the peace the peace from every country. This is the one thing that I would like to show you. And second thing, not only the availability of the supply, the price volatility is very important to hit our economic. If you saw the natural gas, I think in the past of 2014 until 2020, the natural gas is very, very stable. The price is allowed either 10 or 15 MMBTU at US dollar per MMBTU. It is very, very stable. After the COVID, and they have some problem in some area like Russia, Ukraine, and the Cold War. The gas is volatile from the 10 and 15 hit to the 85 US dollar per MMBTU. This is the impact with our economy and impact with the electricity cost. This is another thing that we try to move from the fossil to the renewable like solar and wind to stability of the cost of the electricity. This is the one thing. In terms of the oils, the oil very more volatile, depend on the economic situation, depend on of the supply demand strengthen and the tighten, and depend on the trade tension between the US and China, and also in terms of the OPEC production. Sometimes they cut the production, sometimes they produce more. And in terms of the interest rate and US currency weak or strengthen, the crude oil is very volatile. While when we talk about the retail price in Thailand are changing every week because the world price is very volatile. In terms of the security for the energy, not only the availability, we think about the environmental and also we think about the economic developments. Now the Thai government, they aim to reducing the carbon decarbonization and carbon neutrality and net zero in 2065. This is the aim of our government. They start the plan in 2019 from the General Prayut Chan-o-cha, and they plan to reduce the greenhouse gas around 40% with international support in 2030. They state international support, not only done by ourselves. And also in 2035, we plan to use the 70% share of electric vehicle is replacing than the ICE, the internal combustion. And we aim to use the 50% of share of the renewable electricity in terms of the 2037. And also we aim to have the carbon neutrality in terms 2050 and net zero in terms of 2065. This is the aim that Thai governments commit with the international. That I think this is the important for PTT to take care about this, because when we talk about move more green, that meaning you have more infrastructure and you have developed the new infrastructure for the renewable energy. And second, we think about we should be more capability in terms of the technology like wind, solar, and also in the future like the SMR, the small molecular nuclear, something like that, and hydrogen and the CCU, CCS. This is the technology for that. And after we should be the cost not increase too much because if cost increase too much, it affects our economic development. We need to balance between the security access, environmental sustainability, and economic development and growth. This is the real security. Not start only the green and green because we try to balance in terms of the security, environmental sustainability, and economic development. This is the aim of PTT and the government to do. The government to meet the carbon neutrality in 2050 and net zero in 2065, they have the plan in terms of the National Energy Plan for 2024. The keyword, they have the keyword, sorry, that about in Thai. For that, it means security. It should be, we have the enough energy security, and also we have the sustainability. We have the more efficiency, and the last is the fairness for the Thai people. This is the aim of the National Energy Plan, and also we have the many plans to meet up that. The first is a PDP. PDP is a Power Development Plan. The aim to increase renewable energy to over 50% of power generation in 2037. We want to ban the coal and introduce the clean fuel like hydrogen and SMR, small molecular nuclear, and we try to promote the battery energy storage system, BESS. And also we use the AI for the demand response. The second is the gas plan. The gas plan, we try to increase the resilience of the LNG imported and hydrogen blending to replace the depletion of the domestic natural gas. And the third is the oil pan. We try to promote the electric vehicle aiming for 30% of all vehicle made in Thailand. We call the 30 is mean the 30% in 2030. And we try to use the Thailand hub, the EV production in regional. And the fourth plan, we have the energy efficiency plan. We try to reduce energy intensity by 36% in 2037. And the last, we have the alternative energy development plan to use more renewable energy and to promote the renewable technology. That is the government plan. In terms of the PTT, because we are the major carbon producer, because we do the natural gas business and refinery business, we set up the goal. We call it a TC. We have the TC approach 1. We have the climate resilient business. PTT is shipping our portfolio toward low carbon energy source like a natural gas and renewable to reducing the carbon emission. This is the first C, the climate resilient and business. And second, we are carbon conscious business. The company is enhancing the operation by adopting cleaner energy and advanced technology like we have the modernize our gas station to improve the energy efficiency and reduce emission. And the last, for the C, we have the co-creation and co-location. PTT aims for the net zero emission by using the carbon capture technology. This is we use the gas field in Gulf of Thailand that empty the gas. We put the CO2 in the field. And also we try to work closely with the government and Thai industry, and also not only in the Thailand, we are developed for the regional, for the Singapore and for the Malaysia in the future by use our facility. To achieve the 3C, we leverage our strength and our subsidiary company in terms of the investment and business restructuring and efficiency, and also the clean energy by using the advanced tech. And also we develop the new business model for CCS, hydrogen and reforestation. That is the aim of the PTT to achieve the carbon neutrality. In 2050, PTT plan to achieve the carbon neutrality before the Thailand carbon neutrality. Thailand, they aim to the net zero in 2065. PTT is the 2050 because we are the oil producing. We have the more CO2 emission. We should be developed before the country target. This is our aim of PTT. And also, we change our portfolio and strategic direction in terms of the energy security and create the new goals with the carbon reduction target. Also, we have a competitive portfolio in terms of fossil. We develop the hydrocarbon with the cost competitiveness and develop the decarbonization also. And we diversify the new portfolio to the EV and logistics and pharma and life science business. And also we develop the carbon capture, storage and hydrogen to serve with the decarbonization and for the infrastructure for the future. When you think about the CCS and hydrogen, PTT start the LNG facility around 20 years ago. This is the LNG facility. This is the main natural gas supply from the imported gas. And we think about in the next 10 years and the next 20 years, maybe we need to develop the hydrogen imported facility to use the green ammonia, and after that we have to separate the hydrogen and nitrogen. For the hydrogen we use for the energy, and nitrogen we use for the fertilizer and the agriculture product. That is the aim of the PTT. And also we develop the sustainability plan to unleash business value through the sustainability. And also we transform our organization with the operational excellence and people and organization digital transformation. This is the aim to achieve the net zero and the green product. So the last page, I think we cannot compete the plan if we don't share the common goal and common benefit with the international and with the Thai society. Because this plan needs more collaboration in terms of the technology. I told you in the early phase, we are just a follower, we are not the leader. We need to have collaboration in terms of the technology with the international practice and international player in terms of the digital, AI, robotic, clean technology, and also in the future, biotechnology can convert some CO2 to the petrochemical feedstock. This is very important in terms of the technology. And second, when we move to the new sort of energy, we need to develop the infrastructure like a transmission line and third-party access in terms of the transmission line and also the power purchase agreement. Not only the infrastructure, we need to the new business model and new procedure. And lastly, it's very important because the funding and financial support. Because when we develop the infrastructure, it's very huge investment. And if you want to compete the carbon neutrality with the lower cost, we need to develop more R&D and need the more funding, like the green funding from the financial the institute. That is the aim of Thailand and PTT to meet the carbon neutrality and make more energy security and environmental security. I think the future should be start now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Buranin, for your insightful and informative presentation. Dr. Buranin mentioned about the energy situation in Thailand, including the projection of the domestic energy trend. He also highlighted with the historical for the significant factor for the oil price fluctuation. And he also mentioned about the circumstance of the Thailand energy situation which relate to the abroad energy source. He present about the roadmap to achieve the carbon neutrality and the net zero emission by year 2050 and 2065 by the implementation of the clean energy. And he mentioned about the national energy plan that consists of 5 master plan, and that not only the 5 master plan, but the additional plan that in order to cope with the energy transition circumstance, right? The Ministry of Energy set up the 4D1E, digitalization, decarbonization, digitalization, deregulation, and electrification, that we can change our behavior on energy to the global trend on the energy transition. And he also mentioned about how to initiate the new emerging technology like the hydrogen, including the SMR, which is the modern type of the nuclear energy. But the big challenge for Thailand, if we talk about the nuclear energy, this we often to face with the public acceptance, that we have to educate the people more and more about the advantage of the nuclear energy, the modern nuclear energy. He also mentioned about to decarbonize by applying the CCUS system in his presentation. But not only for the decarbonized energy initiative, but he also mentioned about the energy efficiency and conservation, which is a key factor to reduce the greenhouse gas emission. Dr. Buranin also shared about the circumstance on the PTT, that PTT is the big company of the petroleum product, that he therefore that in order to align with the decarbonization trend, that PTT company set the goal for the 3C, that consists of the climate resilient business, carbon conscious business, and the coalization, which consists of the co-creation, collective effort for all. And he also mentioned about the company's strategic direction by emphasizing the decarbonization, and the company also considering to develop the facility like the hydrogen facility in order to to be the important infrastructure to cope with the demand, increasing in the demand of hydrogen in the future. And lastly, he mentioned about the key success factor in order to approach the common goal that with the new development initiative like a transmission, the new business model, and to seek for the funding in order to develop the business and including the domestic activity to mobilize the decarbonization. Okay, now we completely finished the presentation. I believe that our participants will obtain the new experience and the new information from our esteemed panelists. Now it's time for the Q&A. That if you have any question corresponding to the presentation by our panelists, please do not be hesitate to raise your hand, and our staff will convey our microphone to you. Additionally, you can send your question online to the platform. But at now, I see nobody send the question to the platform system. Therefore, that I think it should be better to provide your question from the audience. Okay, please, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any question.
Thank you. Group Captain Chaya from Strategic Study Center. Yes, my question is to Dr. Virginia. I think I like the you mentioned about the climate literacy. So it's very interesting, and I think it's very important for all. I think so. In order for all of us, in order to achieve the net zero and the sustainable growth, I think. Do you have any recommendation and policy recommendation in order to reduce or in order to achieve the net zero? So in order to raise the climate literacy for all levels, So is there any comments? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. You were asking about climate literacy and what some ideas or recommendations. I think you can do it. You can start young. You can start in schools. It's really raising the awareness of young children. You start from that age, and then you just follow it up. Just become sustained. In a way, the education, the awareness is always going to be part and parcel of the academic program of kids, and that's how you build long-term, awareness and consciousness of the issues. You have to start somewhere, and I think that's one of the most effective, institutionalized ways to sort of develop that habit of conserving, of really being mindful of your environment and and so forth. Among other things. And of course, it can be matched, complemented with other policies from the government. You're trying to sell an idea. So in the marketplace of ideas, you have to make sure that you stand out, right? And so you probably need really genius people, knowing how to market and sell, and so that people will look at it and make sure it's very attractive and sexy, perhaps. So people will actually look and remember the message as well. So those are just some of the, I think, and using, of course, the cyber domain. It's another way of doing that sort of thing, awareness making, and for people to increase the literacy about climate change. Thank you.
Okay, next question, please, ladies and gentlemen.
Can I just ask another question? Because Just as the Dr. Virginia said about most of the nation are just in the early stage of climate literacy. So, for another speaker, I think you mentioned about the fossil energy. I think in the next 15 or 20 years, I think we will run out of this energy. So, is there any plan for the alternative energy, like you mentioned about like nuclear fusion energy? I think so if we can start to doing the research, or maybe make any cooperation within many countries to have the clean energy, the green energy together. So is there any suggestion that we can do the cooperation together in order to have the green energy, and then finally we can all in the region we can achieve the net zero and also low carbon, thing like that. So is there any recommendation that we can make the alternative energy? Yes, Dr. Albers, or maybe Dr. If you can have any suggestions. Yes, thank you.
Okay, I will answer you about the Thailand situation. I think when we Thailand they moved to the like green and the clean energy. I think it's Thailand we use the natural gas more than 30 years ago. We moved from like to the oil. They have to the more cleaner energy is in the natural gas. But natural gas still have the carbon. They clean, but they are not green. Why we talk about to develop the new sort of the energy like wind or the solar. These are the clean and green, and also in the past we developed the biofuel. We use the like a sugar cane to produce the ethanol, and we use the palm oil for the biodiesel. You have to more green, and also in the future we try to develop like the hydrogen to replacing than the natural gas. If we can use the green hydrogen from the like solar energy to use the electrolyzer to condense the the water to the hydrogen and can move together. For the SMR is a long-term plan because like a 20-year plan. If we want to introduce the nuclear, we think about the SMR is easy to handle in terms of the safety, but in terms of efficiency, I'm not sure the SMR is cheaper than the big nuclear power plant. But it's not easy for the like a small country like an ASEAN country to develop the nuclear power plant. I think we have the many problems when we talk about the Western or EU or the US about to develop the nuclear plant. And the nuclear is just only the study. In terms of the collaboration, in terms of the ASEAN, I think this is important. That's why PTT buy the green electricity from the Laos and the some country around there, and use the transmission pipeline in the future in natural gas or also in the electricity transmission line. This is important because the ASEAN is allowed 650 million people. Some country they can produce the energy. Some country they buy. If we had the offset in between the ASEAN country, this is the better. In terms of the R&D, we need to develop the common R&D to sharing the cost. This is my idea.
I just want to add to what Dr. Buranan mentioned, because I think what we have realized by now, especially among strategic and defense experts, that all our solutions have actually corresponding costs, right? So Dr. Brennan mentioned about biofuels, but what happened when nearly all countries were into biofuels? The price of food has skyrocketed because a lot of agricultural areas were now being used to produce biofuels. So again, that was an unintended consequence. And then we also have this, Dr. Brennan talked about the potential problems with managing waste from nuclear reactors. Again, nuclear could be a solution, but how do we solve the waste? Second is that right now there's a lot of, there's the growth in terms of like solar farms and other sources of renewable energies. But they're also happening in areas where other livelihoods are currently being carried out. So for example, there are issues with regards to solar farms and water reservoirs, because those water reservoirs are also fisheries, sources of fisheries for communities, right? So I think we have to really think carefully about all the solutions that we have to think of, because they have corresponding unintended consequences. So in other words, what we're doing is that we're just solving the problem by creating another problem. So maybe that's not the solutions we're looking for, right? Because we wanted to have sustainability. But how do we get there? So earlier in my presentation, I talked about the problems with renewable energy. So renewable energy, renewable technology could have been the solution, except for a lot of the materials that gets into renewable technologies are highly mineral intensive. In other words, they're dependent on mining. They're dependent on extraction. And where are those coming from? They're coming from small islands and mines in Southeast Asia. So again, while there is a technology, there is a solution, but the raw materials where those technologies are dependent on are coming from places wherein people's livelihoods are at stake. So again, we need to really think much more holistically with regards to this problem, because maybe it's something to do also with the way we develop and the way we consume. Because if our development, it's still very much extractive, and our lifestyle are very much highly consumptive, then I think there will be a lot of materials, more things would have to be created to solve the problems that our consumption is creating. So I don't know, maybe it's a question for us. Maybe it's something philosophical, but it's something to think about. Because maybe there's something with the way we develop that's really creating the problems we're trying to resolve now.
Okay, thank you very much for the panelists for your insightful answer. Now I have got the online platform question that from the audience. The first question asks about how will the climate change impact military preparation and operations. That may I invite Dr. Virginia to explain your perspective on this question. Climate change impact to the military preparation in your perspective. Yeah.
I think there's a whole literature on military preparations for climate change. There's a lot of sources and documented already, and how this, the whole process of preparation, the planning, the making sure that it starts from, of course, what's your vision, and then what do you want to do after that, and specifically the development, the framework, and then go to specifics. So operations, the building of installations, when you go out to the region, are you going to, like I was thinking about the United States, of course, or even just ordinary, regular defense institutions of countries, what should they do, right? So they should think about these kinds of materials, protection of resources for energy, for example. How they accessibility to resources, the kinds of resources that are quote unquote sustainable, and then working with scientists, improving in designs, and then at the same time also making sure that you employ the use of technologies for, let's say, emissions and lower emissions, the kinds of material that are actually going to save you costs, save you money, but also, correct, green, in that respect, like green technology. And so that's kind of that's sort of like how some of the militaries are preparing in terms of, of countering the impact of deluge of disasters and so on. You can only prepare so much because you really don't know a whole lot of what kind of disasters you're going to experience. And so you can first prioritize in terms of your country, what does it usually get? So the chart for Southeast Asia, you're sure going to get typhoons in the Philippines, for sure. And so how do they prepare for that in a manner that's going to, help them do their function? What complicates, by the way, the issue is that for climate change and the impact of energy and the environment, for the military, at first, in the primary part, you're just kind of helping out and helping people out. What happens is you start thinking, it transforms into your lives are now also at risk. It's not that your infrastructures are at risk and all this other, the whole ecosystem of your defense, but now your life is also at risk. So you become almost one of, you have to think about your families and so forth. And so that is navigating the challenge that's going to be the hardest, I think, when disasters strike. I remember the typhoon in the Philippines, Yolanda, I believe it was, and the first responders, they were eliminated. They all died. The first responders died because of the tsunami. So what do? They didn't plan for that, right? They didn't plan for the fact that everyone passed away. And so that is something that was really a lesson learned for them. Like, okay, responders not here, who should replace them? This is an extreme example, but so those are the kinds of scenarios also that they should prepare for. I hope I answered the question.
I'd like to add to that one also because in terms of humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, I think the military is very much well structured because it has the processes, the infrastructure, and the training for that. But that's only good for sudden onset disasters. In other words, flooding, earthquakes, tsunamis, all events that's sudden. But the reality is that in Southeast Asia in particular, annual disaster losses are being accounted for at least 60% by slow onset disasters. In other words, drought and other forms of disasters that are not very obvious, but it affects a lot of people. So this is where maybe more preparations or more understanding from the military establishment with regards to how do we respond through a slow onset event for which the trigger is not obvious. Right? If you compare it, for example, with flooding, immediately people are being affected. But if you compare it with drought, it takes a while, right? Maybe that household will have to sell something. You have to sell the car, or maybe they have to migrate, or they have to do other things with regards to their livelihood strategies before finally they're going to be affected. So for outsiders, it's really quite hard to intervene because you don't find the trigger. So I think this is where an issue also that we need to think about. Maybe another issue also that has been discussed in the literature with regards to climate security in Southeast Asia is that this issue about interference in internal affairs. So when a disaster struck, the country had to request from other militaries for assistance. They cannot just go and intervene if there's going to be a disaster, because if it's not being requested, then the principle of non-interference would operate. That means no one can actually help a country unless that country itself would require assistance. And I think apparently I've read in the literature that this has been the case, for example, in Cyclone Nargis in Myanmar, wherein AHA, which was mentioned earlier, the ASEAN Humanitarian Assistance Center, couldn't immediately go and intervene because a request has to be made. So maybe this is where some of the thinking would need to happen so that we can be able to proactively intervene when a disaster happens.
Okay.
I will add on another point for the military. I think if you can use the military technology, we can adopt military technology to the climate change and or the renewable energy. I think there's some technology they come from the military technology.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I believe that many our participants have many questions to ask our panelists, but as saying that every good thing should be come to the end. Therefore, I would like to end our session. I think that the expertise obtained from our panelists has enriched our understanding with the importance of the energy and environmental nexus, which can be aligned with our regional peaceful. And we hope I believe to keep our conversation continuing. And finally, may I invite you to give the big round of applause to our distinguished panelists for their insightful contribution. Okay, may I pass microphone to Mr. and Madam MC.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yawati, for your comments there. And obviously, a lot of the great discussions have been made during this last session of the day, and a lot of very thought-provoking issues, including issues concerning, obviously, the relevance of energy and environment to defense, to security aspect, to military in particular, how they're so related. And sometimes they tend to be overlooked by the general public at large. But at the end of the day, I think these topics are so relevant and we should really be aware of and address these issues every time and every opportunity that we have. So thank you once again to all our panelists for your great discussions and great ideas. Thank you so much. And now, ladies and gentlemen, of course, as our formality, we would like to invite, of course, Major General Nirud Dongpanya, the Director of the Strategic Studies Center, to be the one who presents tokens of appreciation to all our panelists on this occasion, as well as our moderator as well. And of course, tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, we'll continue on with our discussion on other security aspects, namely food and health security as well. How are they related or relevant to the military or defense security? So this will be the highlight of our event. So the first person that I'd like to call upon to receive a token of appreciation from Major General Nirud, Dr. Virginia Buckeye-Watson from the U.S. APCSS, the Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies. And a big hand, please, ladies and gentlemen.
And next to Dr. Albert Salamanca.
Big round of applause, please. Thank you. And Dr. Buranin Ratana Sombat from the energy sector of Thailand, from PTT Public Company Limited.
And of course, our moderator, Dr. Yawati Achawangul.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. And now we would like to move on to the group picture. Air Chief Marshal Poomjai will now join in. And may I invite back all our panelists to join in, as well as our moderator. So for this session of group picture, please. All right, great. Have a look at the cameras, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. We're going to do the count. Wait for the videos to finish. All right, so ready? On the count to 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you so much. Thank you indeed.
And ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude the first day of our seminar, we'd like to extend our heartfelt thanks to all of our speakers and participants for their invaluable contributions. Today's sessions have been filled with insightful discussions and inspiring ideas that have sparked a lot of thought and dialogue. I encourage you to reflect on what you have heard and come back tomorrow ready for another day of learning and collaboration.
And of course, tomorrow we'll begin at 8:45 in this very room. 8:45 with the continuation of session number 4, 5, and of course the closing session number 6 as well. So we have a lot of prominent figures to give the speeches and addresses tomorrow. So please make sure that you join us tomorrow at 8:45. And the dress code will be the same, exactly the same as today. But before that, before tomorrow, we'll still have another event that we would like to invite all of you to participate. That will be the official welcome dinner tonight at this room also. They're going to convert this whole room into a great social function. And don't forget, 1800 or 6 o'clock, we should be back here to join in our dinner reception, and the official dinner will officially start at 6:30 as a matter of fact, because you're going to be treated to a reception like a cocktail just outside of the room at 6 o'clock and then move into the room at 6:30. So you calculate your time. You still have time, I think almost an hour, so walk around, enjoy yourself around this area, and then come back here at 6 o'clock.
Yes, and may I remind you to please return the headphones for interpretation back to our staff. Thank you.
Oh, by the way, they're not souvenirs, by the way. A lot of people might think that the headphones are souvenirs. No, they're not souvenirs. You're not supposed to take them back home with you. Please return them to our staff in front at the registration desk, because a lot of people are going to need those headphones for tomorrow as well. So, okay, so thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen. That's the end of the day. We'll see you at...
See you tomorrow.
We'll see you at 6 o'clock first for the official dinner. Until then, signing off. Thank you. สวัสดีครับ